guys, and then I'm just going to give a brief explanation of what we're doing. Okay, so give me 1 second. It's going to try to play the sound from the YouTube video, so I just want to stop it from doing that because I haven't figured this out fully yet. There we go. Okay. All right. So, of course, it's hot for me. Second. Okay. We should be good to go now. All right. So if someone's watching this later on, just a brief explanation of what we're doing today. We've been continuing our leadership training over the course of the last week. We've done this over a couple times. The idea was, well, if I can get it done a couple times before we record this, and maybe I won't stutter through it as much, we'll see. Maybe we can make it more quick and efficient, but I do expect this to take probably between 2 and 3 hours, being conservative. I'll make sure that we try to square it down as much as possible. We're on today to talk about growth specific to our job. If someone's watching this from our company, Renewal by Andersen of Central Pennsylvania, then we're talking about growing people from the position that they're in right now toward team leader positions in our company. So a lot of the best practices that we go through are going to be dictated to our job. If someone is watching it from another Renewal by Andersen or something like that, which probably will be the case at some point in time, then I mean, this probably is pretty applicable to you too. So we're going to start off with our first slide here. And Eric, please grab a notebook too, if you don't mind, and a pencil or a pen.
All right, I have a sheet of paper here.
Okay, perfect. So the first question I want you to answer, if you can, is what's one word that describes you? It's the first word that comes to your mind. What's one word that describes you? Of course, one positive word. I don't want people to write down short, fat, dumb. You know what I'm saying? It's one positive word. Okay. That you feel like dictates your personality. The first thing just to come to mind. And then this is going to become evident why we're doing this in a second. So we want to go back to kind of what we remember, what we've been taught before, what we've thought about before, the things that we've gone over before. So the thing that we've gone over before a few different times in a few different meetings is we've gone over a book called, and I don't have it with me here. Of course, the one day I wouldn't bring it to work. A book called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Okay. The first law in that book is the law of intentionality. And it's, do you have a plan for your personal growth? So what I want you to do too is write down real quick. I don't want to know your personal plan. I don't want you to write down your personal plan right now, but a plan for personal growth would be a written down plan that comes with you everywhere. Something that you're always reminded of, something that's relatively specific, not just save money, not just don't drink as much, just, something that is written down that you carry with you, that always reminds you of where you need to be and where you want to be. Okay. So if you could just answer that question for yourself, write it down real quick. Do you have a plan for personal growth? Okay. The idea is a lot of people, and the first story I'll go through here, a lot of people that go into some sort of personal development, they get very, very antsy. They get very impatient, right? And we benefit from having a lot of people that are very patient right now with us. As we go through the pandemic, it's interesting to me to see, I'm sort of surprised to see a lot of people sticking to this job, even though they don't like certain things about it. They're like, well, I wasn't hired for this job. This is not what I wanted to be doing. I feel like I'm sort of behind on my goals. Obviously, I understand why, because it's not a normal time, but I'm willing to push out because I do have objectives and goals that I think can be completed at this company. My idea of growth, I think, does exist here. And I think it's a very smart thing for people to do. I think one of the worst things people do is they get very impatient, and they wait until the last second to think about their growth. So there's a guy who used to work here. His name was Chris. He worked there for a while, a couple of years. And Chris was really, really good at his job. He was a very good canvasser, did a great job. At one point, probably 6 months, maybe 8 months in, Chris came to me and he came to Andrew and he said, hey, I'd like to grow into sales. And we said, okay, fine, no problem. That sounds good. We can definitely do that for you, get you on the path to do that. The only things you need to do, there's 3 core things. First thing was he needed to recruit somebody to replace himself. The idea was you can't take away from the department that you're in to go to a different department. For example, if I have someone growing to a team leader position, they're within our department. They're going to be recruiting anyway. So that would not, it wouldn't be necessary to go recruit other people outside of that, right? But if you're going to a position like sales, for example, then you have to help us find someone to replace you. You have to help us train that person, get that person prepared to be at least as successful, at least on the path for it, as you. From there, it's up to us to take it from there. The second thing was get used to working 6 days a week, because that's the way it works. In this job, in sales, for example, it is a 6 day a week job. They work at least Monday through Saturday. Some of them work Sunday as well, but it's at least a 6 day a week job. And the third thing was simply start being nice to customers, because this guy had more complaints from customers than I'd ever seen from anybody. Every week we were getting a relatively serious call about him being disrespectful to a customer. And one week, literally, the call was, hey, I told your guy that my windows were fine. He said, what are you effing blind? Okay. And he admitted this. He copped up. He said that it was true. So now he probably should have been fired right there. But I believe in second chances. The customer, thank God for him, believed in second chances as well. He apologized. That was that. But obviously completely inappropriate, not the right thing to do. So the complaints got a little bit better over the next couple months. We didn't have as many of them, although they still did exist. He didn't help us find anybody. I think he brought one interview in, someone that wasn't the right fit for a job. And he worked 6 days, maybe 1 week, but also took off days other weeks too, whatever. Didn't really do anything to show he wanted growth there. So a couple months go by, maybe 6 months goes by. I mean, I hear from other people, he's just waiting you out. He thinks that eventually he'll just grow to sales. And Andrew was managing him, so I think that Andrew and I had many discussions about it. But he started causing disruptions in the van all the time. Every day it was something new. Every day there was disruptions and interruptions and whatnot in our day. So we sat down and we had another conversation with him. And his whole thing was, well, I just think I should be in sales by now. I've been here for a long time now. We said, okay, Chris, but you decided that this stuff, we talked to you about it first. We told you what you needed to do. And you decided that that stuff was stuff that you could complete, missions that you could complete. And now you're deciding that you can't for some reason, but you haven't tried to. I know, I get it. And all of a sudden he would get it. He would tell us that he understood, but to everybody else, he didn't understand. He thought he should be in sales, so and so. It actually would make other people, it would give other people an excuse not to work hard. Other people are saying things like, well, yeah, this guy has been here for so long and he hasn't grown. What makes me think that I can grow? You know, so it was impacting other people around him. It was impacting people in the department. And it was impacting definitely his ability to be managed. Okay. Then we had him tell a couple sales reps, talk to a couple sales reps, and he would tell these sales reps, well, I've been here for 2 years and this is a couple months later, and I've done all this great stuff. I'm the best in the department, but they still won't let me grow. One of the sales reps told him, well, you should go to Jason in HR because you definitely should have grown so far, this, that, whatever. That gets back to me through Andrew. And we sit down and I say, you know, now you're getting other departments involved in our stuff too. You know, you've told me every damn week that you know what you have to do, that you understand it, and that you don't have a problem with it. But then you turn around and you cause all these disruptions and problems. What's up with that? You know, and it was just becoming abundantly clear that if he wasn't going to grow, which he wasn't going to, I wasn't going to just let him grow. If he wasn't going to grow, he wasn't going to wait me out. Then he was going to have to leave. He was going to have to go. And that's what I told him. I said, you know, look, go try to find another job because you're starting this process over again. There's no way in my eyes that you grow to a different position if you can't get along with the people in this department. Anybody, you know, you're making things miserable for everybody. The key is this, though. So there's two keys there. Number one is this guy, when he was terminated from the company, when he left the company, the team instantly got better because he was such a miserable source of entertainment for a lot of people. It was really not a good situation. The way that he acted, it was like a reality TV show, just like a Desperate Housewives acting up all the time. It was really a bad situation, and like the show Desperate Housewives. I mean, that's not really a reality show, I guess, but you get the point. The second effect, though, was negative effect was that, or impact that it had was the reason why he didn't grow was because he kept waiting till the last minute till everything. His whole thing was, well, if I find out I'm going to grow in 2 weeks, then I'll start the process in two weeks. or if I find out I'm going to grow in 4 weeks, then I'll start the process in 2 weeks. His idea was, why should I have to do the work now to grow later? My numbers are good. That should be enough, right? It doesn't make sense to do that. It doesn't make sense to, people remember everything, right? So let's say, for example, I screw around, right, for 6 months, but then all of a sudden, 2 months before growth or 1 month before I expect growth, I then start to change. It's not like my entire history gets deleted. It's not like if I did all these terrible negative things that all gets deleted. That stuff is going to carry over too. So it just makes sense to start the action now. It doesn't take very much. Basically, what I would say to anybody is take your job and what you do and just add a couple hours a week tops onto it. And if you do that, then you're going to be successful. You're going to be in the right place. Volunteer to do things. Don't give advice, take it. That's really like fly under the radar. You don't have to be at the forefront of every single thing in order to grow. That's not what we're necessarily looking for. Just be a productive part of the team. So if you focus on your goals, this is a quote that I liked. If you focus on your goals, you'll hit your goals. If you focus on growth, then you'll grow and you'll hit your goals, right? So the idea is that if you focus on, if I go out today and I say, I'm going to get 3 leads today at this event, then that's great, fantastic. I'll probably hit my goal. But if I focus on the how I'm going to obtain those 3 leads, then I'm gonna help myself forever. It's not just going to be about that one goal. It's going to be about forever, right? I mean, I could go out there, I could set a goal for 10 leads today. I could go lie to a bunch of customers, set up 10 leads, one of them runs, and I made no progress, right? I didn't actually make any progress on what I was doing. I put myself in a worse place. Now I think I can just BS and whatever I do is fine and I'll be good, right? Not exactly the best place to be in. All right, so some problem ways of thinking. This is another thing that we've gone over in the past too. The first way we just talked about, I assume I'll automatically grow. The second one, B, I don't know how to grow. C, it's not the right time to grow. D, I don't feel like doing it. E, I thought it would be easier than this. And most of those things can be relevant. I mean, of course, everybody feels like there's a time for them to grow and not. My biggest suggestion for people in a situation like this, I always explain to people, never tell, unless you're being offered a job on the spot and you really don't think you can do it, never tell anybody I'm not interested. It doesn't make sense to do that, right? If someone says to me, hey, 3 months from now, will you be interested in this job? I mean, even if somebody came to me now and said, hey, 3 months from now, I'm opening up this department in Waco, Texas, and I really want you to be a part of it. I'm going to say, oh, well, get me the information, whenever you can. I'm not going to say no to it because why would I cut myself off from that growth? What happens over the next 3 months? I have no idea. Maybe my plans change. Like, let's say, for example, I'm a college student and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to grow in this company because in a year, I want to become a doctor. But then a year from now, I go to try to become a doctor and I can't find any jobs. I don't pass this exam, whatever. Now I probably need that growth. I probably am ready for that growth, but it was probably given to somebody else because I abstained from taking it. The whole point is just, it's all about how you think in your mind. Even if you don't feel like you're ready, doesn't mean that you need to take the opportunity. Like if somebody came to me today and said, hey, do you want to own this company? I don't think I'm prepared to ever do not ever, but right now to do something like that. I think that I would need to put in months of work, but I wouldn't say no to that. I would say, oh yeah, it's something definitely to think about. Get me some details on. Again, doesn't make sense to say no to opportunity. I don't know how to grow is a silly excuse in this company because we talk about it so much. Going into the sort of our next phase of things here, we never know what this pandemic is going to bring. But let's say, for example, we don't go back to canvassing until, let's say, Q2 next year, okay? Which is a possibility. That could happen easily. You could think springtime, we go back to canvassing, that makes sense. Let's say that we don't go back till March, okay? Whether it's March or it's January or it's 3 years from now, it doesn't matter. Our structure is going to change. The way that we do things is going to change. Even if there's a vaccine, there is a vaccine, but even if there's a vaccine that is 100% effective and has no side effects and every person took the vaccine, the way that we change our operations, it's going to be different, but in a positive way. The teams that we have are going to be smaller and there's going to be more of them. It opens up a lot more opportunity for the right people to make a lot of money leading those teams. And it makes it easier for people that don't know how to grow to get on that process of growth. Start with a smaller team, show that you can do it with a smaller team. You grow that team, you show success with that team, and then you grow to higher positions. There'll be layers of management in this new position that we are working on. So the way it will work is, let's say we have 4 teams. Those 4 teams will eventually have a team leader that manages those 4 teams. But each of those teams will also have a team leader. So you have a team, I guess you'd call it a team director, okay? Or maybe like a regional director, something like that. And then you'll have team leaders on each team. And then above that, you'll have, myself, Andrew Carson, above that, okay? So the structure will be different. It opens up a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. It opens up a lot more income for a lot of people. It's something to be excited about, right? But we got to start working on this now. I don't feel like doing it. There's no solution for that. And I thought it would be easier than this. Well, it's not easy. It's just not. I mean, a lot of times, and this is what I realized when I went into management, my manager that I started out with, he was very, very terrible at his job. But the way I thought about it was, wow, this looks easy because he's making money and he's not very good at what he does. I mean, he's making money and he's dropping us off and going to the beach. He literally would. He'd drop us all off, go to the beach, drop us off, go to the movies. It was ridiculous. It'd be raining out all day. We get back in the van. He's completely dry and he's got a bunch of scratch stickers in his hand, Burger King next to him. I'm like, what the hell is this, man? This is ridiculous. So I didn't learn exactly from the best manager, but I saw from his job, I thought this will be a breeze. This won't be hard at all. I found out the hard way, it is a lot more difficult. When you're dealing with all these people and all their different problems, it's a lot more than a 40-hour-week job sometimes, but it pays off. It's worth it. If it got me where I am today, it's definitely worth it. The place that I'm in today, to be in a company where you're respected, where you're able to have your independence and where you're able to help people grow, it's a very good position to be in, but it is not easy. So the resolution, the solution here is to resolve to grow intentionally. The idea is everybody's going to grow individually. Andrew's holding a baby right now. That baby is going to grow without intention. No matter what, that child is going to grow. There's going to be a process there that goes on naturally that makes that child grow. All of us are young. All of us are going to continue growing. The question simply becomes, how do we grow? What does it look like when we grow? There's a difference between intentionally growing and growing unintentionally, right? Every person is going to grow unintentionally. Now, people could grow to become not great people. They could grow to become not that mature, but they're going to go through a growth process regardless. Okay. How do we grow intentionally? So the first thing is start today and start it intentionally. It can't be I'm going to start growing today. I'm going to do exactly everything the way that I typically do it. But I'm going to start, my mind's going to be growing. No, you got to take action on things. First, second would be take complete responsibility. You're at an event, you don't do well. I didn't do well, not because of the weather, not because there was not a lot of people there, but because I didn't do the right thing with those people, because I didn't wear enough layers in the weather, whatever the case is. Start to take complete responsibility for everything. I think that it's good practice. What I would say is this: is start out by taking responsibility for things. If you let's say I live with a girlfriend, and I don't take the trash out or whatever, I'm going to take responsibility for that. I'm going to take, the dishes aren't done. I'm sorry, I should have done the dishes. Start taking responsibility for literally everything. Find yourself a balance. Learn from other people's mistakes. Everybody says learn from your own mistakes. Of course you should. Anybody should do that. But learn, every mistake has been made. As I said in the last meeting, there's probably been some idiot that's eaten ice cream out of a plunger. People have done the dumbest things. Some moron tried to run a shopping cart down a set of stairs. I'm sure every mistake has been made that you can possibly imagine. Yet people make the same mistakes every single day. We all know what it looks like when someone texts and drives. We've seen this all over the news. We've seen, 70 car pileups because some idiot can't get off their phone. However, on a daily basis, we have to constantly remind ourselves that that's not a good thing to do, right? It's drug addiction. I mean, I know that if I put a needle in my arm to do heroin, I know what the end result is going to be. There's nothing good that will come from that. Okay, maybe minus the failing in the beginning. I know what the result's going to be. There's not been many people out there that have done heroin and have not got addicted to it, that have done heroin and had an easy time getting off it. Oh, no problem. Yeah, I'll just stop. Not many people are like that. So why would I put that needle in my arm? Resolve to not make not make your own mistakes. Look at what other people have done. Look at what your manager's done, and run things differently based on a success formula, which we're going to go over in a minute. Work hard and smart. It doesn't work to just work smart. You end up working yourself in a bad position. There's this book called like 20-Minute Work Week or something like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. Have you ever heard of that, Eric? Let's see what it's called. It's either called 20 or 5. I'm going to shut this door here and look it up while I'm doing that. I have to find it, but it's a book written by a guy. He writes self-help books. It might have been like the 3-Hour Work Week or something like that. It was let me see the 4-Hour Work Week. Okay, it's written by a guy named Tim Ferriss. Now, who am I to say Tim Ferriss is not a smarter guy, right? I don't know Tim Ferriss. He might be a very smart individual. He's obviously somewhat successful. The book is pretty well known. I don't believe in any principle in that book. I think it's completely ridiculous to think that unless you were born with some sort of benefit, or unless you land on some sort of really, really nice runway there. I can't think of many places that you land where your work week is 4 hours. I don't care if you're a rock star or a football player or a basketball player or an actor. Your work week is probably not 4 hours. Okay. Definitely not a business owner. I have to imagine your work week is not 4 hours, not at the start of your career anyways. Working hard is extremely important. Working hours is extremely important. It's important to have a work-life balance too, but especially when you're young, getting those hours in, that's what made my career. My career was made off of being able to put 7 days a week in at one point in time or another. I'm not saying that it takes that. For me, it did. I also was coming from a real bad place, a real negative place. I had to learn a lot more than most average people, but working hard is important, and being smart about it is important too. Persevere in hard situations. Whenever you're in a hard situation, stop, think about it, pause, and take action the proper way. Fight for good habits. Doesn't mean you're always going to have them, but make sure you're always fighting for better habits. You know, if I go to that freezer, am I grabbing that ice cream, or am I grabbing that, I don't know what else you put in the freezer? That's pretty good. Most things, when you think about it, most things you put in the freezer are not very good. They're not very healthy, right? So we'll just skip the freezer thing. When I go to the fridge, am I going to grab the ice cream from the freezer or the strawberries from the refrigerator, right? Fight for good habits. They're not always going to exist, but you can probably fight and make them better. Follow through with everything that you say, and when you don't, apologize for it and persevere the next time. Think and learn. Continue to learn. Read books. There's so many books. I'm going to give you a couple right now that are really, really positive and really good, okay? First one I'll give you is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's like the classic. Most people have heard of that book before, at least, by Dale Carnegie. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That's a fantastic book. And then the 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. Pretty much any book by John Maxwell is great. Those would be some recommendations, but continue to think and learn. Don't stop growth. Don't ever get content with growth. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to, by the way, grow too. Like, let's say, for example, I get in this role and I say to myself, yeah, I'm good here. I'm comfortable in my job. I don't want to move anywhere. I'm happy where I'm at. Okay, that's great. But as an individual, if you stop growing, then eventually your job is going to leave you behind. And that's what happened to me down in Philadelphia. Admittedly, a lot of things changed, and I didn't change with that change. I didn't grow as an individual, and that's what put me in a harder position. It's what made us go from number 1 in the country for a number of years to number 2 and then number 3, and we never got beyond number 3, thankfully. But it's what made us not in number 1 anymore, for sure. Control your personal life. A lot of people struggle with this. I knock on wood, because every time I say this, I feel like myself and my wife get into a fight. But one of the things that I do is my wife and I, we resolve all of our conflicts. If we fight before the end of the day, the idea is not to go into the next day into a bad mood, right? So that's one piece of advice I'd give any couple. I don't give many people much relationship advice, but that's the one advice I'd give somebody is don't continue fights that you don't need to continue. It doesn't make any sense at all. You take control of your personal life, you're going to be more well rested. You're going to be happier. You're not going to be spending as much time worrying about things. This is a big one. Create commandments for yourself. Now, I don't know how religious of a person you are, Erica. You don't have to be to have commandments. But, if you follow the commandments in the Bible, I mean, it's basically a guideline to never have a significant police charge, right? I mean, that's the reality is that if you look at the 10 commandments, it's like, wow, I'll never have, even if you don't look at it from a religious perspective, there's a guideline to never have a felony, right? So, I mean, if you create commandments for yourself, it might be wake up at 5 a.m. every day, wake up early, get 8 hours of sleep. It might be, I don't know, physical activity for 1 hour per day, whatever it is. Resolve your commandments, have your commandments, make sure they're things that you carry with you and that you can remember. What I'd like you to do is, while we're going through these last two things, is write down a couple commandment ideas that you have in your head, just thinking right off the bat, things that you maybe should do more, or really good habits that you have that you think you should continue to do. So I have this awful habit of saying, you know what I'm saying, after everything, right? And it was really highlighted in that movie with the no regrets guy or whatever across his chest. I think he says, know what I'm saying, after everything, right? So people started pointing it out to me after that movie came out that I would say that all the time. I had to go watch the movie because people kept telling me that. And that would be, for example, a commandment is resolved to never say, you know what I'm saying, after things that you say. And I say it all the time. First person to ever call me out on that actually was the owner of this company. We're in a meeting and he said, you say this a lot. You got to stop saying it. And for a while, he was successful at getting me to stop saying it. Have character. You cannot lead people and not have the right intentions. You just can't. It's not. There's no way to long term do that. It's funny because people have said to me, even people that work here have said to me, we got in discussions about greatest leaders. I remember one point in time in the office bringing up, who do you think the greatest leaders are in the world has ever seen? And it's not uncommon to hear people say things like Hitler. Right? It's not uncommon, and that's kind of messed up. But I think that the reason why people say that is because they get this idea, this sort of romanticism about Hitler, like, well, he led people. I mean, he made people do things. People died for him, and I get it. Yeah, he took advantage of a vulnerable population. Whenever your leadership ends in like 26 million deaths or whatever it was, you did not do a good job, man. I don't care who you were. I don't care what you do. If your leadership ends in that much death, you are not great. You didn't achieve anything. If your country ends up where Germany ended up post World War II, then you are not a great leader. Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Think about it right now. If we had a leader who the end result was like half the country was dead, and like we were completely broke. We couldn't do anything. We completely relied on like China and Russia. We would not consider that guy a good president. We would not go, oh, that guy was just such a good leader. No, people don't consider Charles Manson a good leader. He drugged people and made them do things. You got to have character to be a good leader. You have to have the right intentions for the people that work around you, not work for you, just work around you, work with you. Be aware of your surroundings and be aware of who you are and what you're doing. This is something that everyone struggles with. One thing, for example, that I am never aware of, I'm always aware of it, but I never take action on it, is I'll call Andrew and I'll be on the phone with him for a half hour. And at the end of the conversation, he said 4 words and I've said 4,862. That's something that I need to have greater awareness of. Right? Am I right about that, Andrew? Give me a thumbs up if that's correct. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, you got to be aware of things like that. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect on them, but if you're aware of them, you can't fix them if you're not aware. One thing that Carson told me, I remember sitting down with him, and it was when Cindy was here, and Cindy says to me, she goes, man, like, yeah, I'm like really afraid of you, she says, or something like that. Oh, you get this reputation. People are like afraid. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like, I don't yell at anybody. I never, ever reprimand anybody. I don't understand why that idea exists. And Carson said to me, you speak really loudly when you care about something, like very loudly when you care about it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, whatever. That's being aware of what you do. Sometimes it takes somebody else to tell you. I had no idea. I never thought about that. I always wondered why my wife would say, stop yelling at me. And my kids would be like, well, I thought you were mad because you were yelling at me. No, I'm not yelling. I just talk loudly. So, So this guy, Henry Arnold, had this quote: "The wise man questions himself, the fool others." And he had this quote I thought was good in his cartoon. He's a cartoonist. This cartoon says, "Retreat never won a battle or prevented a war." And this has not much to do with what we're going over here. The cartoon doesn't. But I just thought it was ironic that when I looked up Henry Arnold cartoons, this was the first cartoon that popped up. And it happened to do a lot with what we're going over today. Okay, so now we get into the meat of things, right? So Eric, I'll ask you this, right? Okay, and this is something, unmute yourself and tell me. Ideally, so let's say we get back into canvassing and whatnot. Okay, what would you ideally like to eventually do at one point in time? So let's say, for example, we get back into canvassing. What would be your first step? What would you like to do?
Ideally, I've been thinking about this. I think I would like to grow into sales.
Cool. Okay, cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's good because it's a very independent job. You know, I mean, it's 100% commission, but you're not going to find many sales reps that are unhappy with that, right? I mean, the majority of them that you see are pretty happy about, you know. All right, so one of the biggest things when it comes to getting into sales, and especially up there in Altoona, is we need enough appointments to be able to hire more sales reps, right? Like that's a core thing. That is creation of those appointments, right? So as we go back into canvassing, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be growing these different teams. Different team managers are going to be growing different teams and whatnot, right? So whether or not you decide, you know, hey, I'm going to do that for a couple months first, which is perfectly fine, or I'm just going to go into canvassing until I get into sales a month or two from now. Both those situations are completely fine, right? And who knows, you might be able to step right into sales. It really depends on where we're at as a department. Obviously, that's the biggest thing. If we get back in April, then it will be springtime and they'll probably be hiring sales reps at that point. If we get back in February, it's still wintertime, it probably won't be, right? So it all depends on what our situation is. Either way, these best practices, and what I really want you to think about too while we're going through this is think about your team, the team that you're on, and think about what of these things was done and what wasn't done, okay, when we were canvassing last, okay? Now, going back into canvassing, our biggest job is going to be extremely disciplined, way more disciplined in what we do. Doesn't mean that it's going to be less fun. It doesn't mean that it's going to be, I mean, not much is going to change except for these things that we talk about today are going to be a discipline. Now, these things are not new. These things have been around for years. What this is here, the best practices are my 11 years of experience, okay? And then the collective experience of myself, Andrew Carson, people like that, put onto paper. These are the problems that we've seen come up and the solutions for those problems, right? So it's an extremely productive document. If someone said to me, hey, I'm going to start a canvassing department, do you have any advice for me? I would send them this directly. This is exactly what I would send them because it has everything in it. Literally, if you follow this to the T, your department's going to be successful, okay? So we go through this, and this is, again, more for people that want to go into the team leader position, but either way, very, very important for anybody that wants growth because you'll see that, again, the problem solving that goes on here. We'll talk about the problems and the solutions. So the first one, recruiting should be done before anything else. Tuesday through Thursday, Mondays, payroll comes first, and then we go into recruiting. The reason why this came up is because what was happening was people were flipping it. They didn't like doing the recruiting as much because you're calling a lot of people. Sometimes you got to go on location to colleges, stuff like that. And so what they were doing was they were flipping it. Well, the problem with that was they would do their mapping and their territory and stuff like that first, and they would take forever on that. And then by the time they got to recruiting, it limited what they could do. Where if we did the recruiting first, then their mapping would have to be done quicker. People like cutting maps. It's fun, honestly. It's like creating a puzzle. It's not a difficult thing to do. So people like spending time on that. Well, that's why it should come second, because if you do this first, the part that you don't like, get it out of the way, the part that is more important, the territory can be done in a half hour if you need to do it in a half hour. It's all about what you need to do, right? The pre-planning that goes into it. So that's the solution to the problem that had come up. The second one, phone interviews conducted with phone interview script. And the next two will explain the problem that came up there. When a potential candidate does not answer, leave a voicemail and email, and only set up interviews. I know I'm skipping one within a 48-hour window unless we cannot schedule them. Example, Friday, we need to set up someone for Monday because I'm not here Sunday. So this is a big one. Save the pay structure, the hours, and the deep dive job description for the face-to-face interview. The phone interview is for you vetting the candidate. So the problem that we had coming up, the reason why these three or four really, the last one too, were created was because people were working their way through their own calling script. And what they would do is it's hard sometimes. You get asked questions when you call somebody for an interview, and you want that person to show up. And sometimes people get a little bit rambunctious, and they would start telling them, "Oh, the base pay is this, and the hours are this." And the problem became we were putting ourselves in a position where people did not want to do the job before they even heard about the job. Our success rate with people doing the job was much lower because we were telling people things like base pay $11 an hour. Now that might sound like, and somebody brought up to me, a couple people have in the past, well, I don't want to lie to these people. You're not lying to them. You're not going to tell them it's $50 an hour base pay. No, you're going to tell them the average is whatever the average is for the previous month. And there's a base pay plus commission. Okay. And in the interview, I'm going to tell them everything. I'm going to break it exactly down for them, exactly how it works. So I'm not going to lie to them. What I don't want to happen is I say $11 an hour plus commission. They've never worked a commission job before, or the only commission job they've ever worked is a terrible company that never paid out the commission. I don't want them to be afraid of that. I want to be able to show them firsthand exactly how it works. On top of that, there's no way for me to make them understand the commission structure over the phone. And if I start talking about door-to-door, this, that, whatever, and then they speak to their parents about it, or their girlfriend about it, or whatever, their boyfriend about it, it's going to be an immediate no. Their parents are going to go, oh, door-to-door, I don't know about that, whatever. Right? So the idea is if I can get them in for an interview, I can explain everything to them. And I explain the good, bad, and the ugly. I explain everything to that person, but I want more control over the process of doing that. That's the idea there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last one, after setting up an interview, it's send a text message with the interview to the address, or with the address to the interview, just a brief message, okay? Just to remind them of where they're going, whatever. You get the point. Mapping and territory. So territory standards, now it's a little bit different for up there in Altoona. The home value can be a little bit lower up there. The square footage should remain the same. The minimum was 100K. It's 100K down here. 1,000 square feet. Anything above 10 years old. Original Andersen windows, 20 years older, 20 years or older. Okay. Now, just because it says 10 years old doesn't mean that we can't do a 7-year-old neighborhood. What it's saying is, if you got a 7-year-old neighborhood, go out and drive around it first. Go out and check it out first, right? Because you don't want to send somebody to a 7-year-old neighborhood, because all that's going to happen is they're going to call you a half hour into the day. They're going to say they're having a tough day because all the houses are new, and then you're going to have to go pick them up, right? You send them to a 15-year-old Andersen window neighborhood, then same thing's going to happen. They're going to call you and say, well, everybody's saying that they're under warranty, and then you're going to go pick that person up, right? So having this standard saves time and ensures that we're not going into anything that's considered bad, you know? To organize territory, we'll start in the corner of a map, and we'll cut it from the corner to the left and to the right, covering the entire map. Okay, now that's a little bit more confusing to understand. What was happening there was team managers would go and they would pick out where they were going to do, and they would do a neighborhood over here and a neighborhood over there and a neighborhood over here. They would do all the best neighborhoods. And the issue was what they considered the best neighborhoods. The issue was, A, we're never completing that entire town. So we're losing a lot of time where we could be going back to these towns. And this is a problem that you guys saw up there in Altoona a little bit. Altoona should max out with probably about 25 to 30 people. There's enough territory there for 25 or 30 people. We were running out of territory with 10 people, you know, which should never happen. We were having to go back to areas that we were in 3 or 4 months ago because we weren't doing this all of the time, because we were not being perfect with our territory. It's very, very hard to hit that perfect mark. But if you start in a corner and you don't get too biased, this is a good neighborhood, this is a bad neighborhood, and you go left or you go right, then you're never going to be driving too far. In addition, if you drive from one side of the town to the next, then you're going to run into an issue with time. It takes a lot of time to do that. Drop-offs and pickups take a lot of time. You end up getting people back way later than they wanted to, and the results are not as good. Okay, pick a couple hours every week to scout territory for the next couple weeks, whether at home or at the office. Okay, this problem that was happening was that people, I kept seeing where people, I'd say, what are you doing today? Where are you going? And they would say, I don't know, I got to figure it out. That should never happen, man. I used to have my territory planned out for 6 months. 6 months I'd have my territory planned out for. Now, it wouldn't always go that way. Sometimes that would only last me 4 months, or it would last me 8 months. But that's fine. I could adapt with that much notice, with me knowing what I was going to do and when I was going to do it. It made my job so much easier. I never had to worry about that. Right. And this next one, after picking an area, paper copy map it. It should say map it out, not hour. So we have the file saved to save us time next time we're mapping on a territory. Now I might have a map laying around here. I don't know if I do, but what I mean by paper copy mapping is back in Boston, we didn't have the well, we had the internet. I'm not 80 years old, but back in Boston, we didn't have the internet to do mapping. We didn't have any kind of computer system. We had no iPads. Everything was done on hard copy map. And that's exactly the way I liked it. Because the benefit of that is, let's say 3 months from now, I go back there, or 6 months from now, I go back there, or better yet, your team goes back there. I can just turn directly to that part of the map, and I know exactly what can be done, what was done, what wasn't done, and exactly how old it is, because we just mark it. So we mark it 2004, 1,200 square feet, and then when the last time we did it was. Make sense? Every area fitting our criteria of territory should be knocked before finishing a town. Only have 2 towns being worked in at one time, so we don't have a vast time frame between neighborhoods in one area. One problem that was popping up is, let's say, for example, I did a town and I jumped from place to place, or I jumped from this town to this town to this town to this town. When Andrew went to go back, let's say we went to go break up territory again, Andrew got those towns, then only 2 neighborhoods were done here, 4 neighborhoods were done here. There was 1 neighborhood left here, and it puts his team in a really bad position. So again, we had to solve the problem there. Before, after arriving at territory, explain how you'd like the map to be knocked to ensure we're saving as much time as possible. And I'm sure you've seen this on the teams where it's not explained to people, hey, you're going to come up here, you're going to loop around here, you're going to take a right here, you're going to turn left right here. And when it's not explained, what happens is people do it how they want to do it. A lot of time is missed. I remember driving up to a manager pretty much right before lockdown, and he's walking like a mile up the street. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I zigzagged down that way. I did this house, down that way. Well, the problem with that is that this person walked all the way down the street and then had to dead walk all the way back. There was nothing they were doing for an hour or a half hour. They're just walking. It kills time. It does nothing positive for the department. So, I mean, I've seen people skip streets, skip almost entire neighborhoods. They'll call their manager at 5 o'clock and say, hey, I'm done with my map, where they have 3 hours left in their map. You know, oh, I didn't even realize it, right? When you tell people exactly how to do the territory, it eliminates the excuse. I never had an issue with this stuff, even using paper, up until I moved down to central Pennsylvania when managers stopped doing this. Each morning, pick an employee to check for inconsistencies in their map from the previous day, going through lead sheet records. So in the computer, we can check lead sheets and we'll be able to see, hey, this person didn't knock for a half hour, didn't knock for 20 minutes. So it's just a way to check and make sure everybody's doing the right thing. Okay. On the road continued, or on the road rather. The goal is to be out of the parking lot within 5 minutes of the meeting being over to ensure maximum knock time each day. And this one's obviously really simple to understand. The issue we were having was people would leave, 10 people, 3 of them would have to go to the bathroom. Of course, they'd all pick the same bathroom because why not kill that much time? They'd walk outside. Now they want to smoke a cigarette. Oh, shit, I forgot my phone back in the office. Then they have to come back and get their phone. All of a sudden, it's a half hour later, and we're finally leaving the parking lot. All right. So if you, from a management perspective, if you have 10 people that let's say that wasted 30 minutes of 10 people's time, that's 300 minutes of knock time that's now gone, just completely gone. That did not need to be gone. That's so much production. You're talking 10, 12 leads a day potentially. It's very, very important to get that time back. These next 2 are really important. Pre-pick a place for a break in a town that we're knocking, either right off the highway or along the driving route. We do not want to go to a place far away from territory because we risk more time on the road without bathroom breaks. So let's say, for example, I leave the office and there's a McDonald's right next to the office. It doesn't make sense when I have a 50-minute drive to go to that McDonald's because by the time I stop again, people are going to need to take a piss, right? So what ends up happening is I end up killing a lot of time, or I make people really uncomfortable out there having to go to the bathroom halfway through the day. In addition, what we were seeing was, let's say people wanted to go to Chick-fil-A, which is a mile, let's say a mile down on the left, and their territory was all the way on the right. They had to drive, 20 miles to the right. The issue was they're driving backwards a mile, stopping for a break, then driving back another mile just to get back on road to go to their territory. Again, killing a ton of time. And that was happening way too much. RBA allows for 1/2 hour unpaid break for shift, the lunch break, and our department allows for 2 more 5-minute breaks to be taken as the canvasser sees fit in territory. And obviously, this is to make it so that we're not picking people up all day because it takes a lot of time out of the day. If you went to go pick everybody up once as a manager and bring them somewhere, I mean, you're talking about eliminating an hour and a half potentially from the day, from every person's day. Such a significant amount of time. If any team member would like to carry a snack with them, they may. However, it has to be in a drawstring style backpack, and any trash from the food or drink has to be put back in that backpack. Can't be littered in territory. And the biggest reason why this got into place, the problem we ran into, there was a guy named Nick, and he broke into a customer's house to steal a MacBook. Okay, back when I first started down here in Pennsylvania, probably a year after, I think it was this guy David was his manager. Now I saw this kid looked like he had a bit of a heroin problem. He was nodding off during a meeting. Now I wasn't going to be in the office, so I said to David, "Hey, can you pull the kid aside? I need to have a conversation with him." It was before we had an HR department, so it was more difficult to deal with things like that. He forgot to. Of course, that would be the day that this guy broke into that person's house and got caught leaving the house out of the window as the people were coming home. Obviously put our company in a difficult position, and he got arrested. They found heroin on him too. So you can never predict what every person's going to do. This is a good way to control some of those things. What's going on? I'm recording this meeting right now. So you know. Do you need anything specific?
Julie paychecks
No, but hold on pause for 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Just a paycheck question. Okay, cool. All right, so I think we get the point of that. I promise these are almost over. I know this is long, but this is the number one most important document for anybody wanting to grow into management, and it's also again the problem solving in this. It really is. It's tremendous because it's a living document. We can continue to update it over and over and over again. You know, anytime a problem comes up. And when we give that to new managers, if they just follow it, it solves, you know, all of the problems that they'll experience in their first couple months. And the reason why this is so important, what you'll see is if you start off the correct way, then it's very, very easy to run a team in a very good way. If you start off in a difficult way, if you start off not following these things, then it's very difficult to take these things away. Let's say, for example, my team is used to me saying, "Hey, where do you guys want to go for lunch?" Right? And then they pick a place, then we go and we sit down at a place and so on and so forth. Now, all of a sudden, I have to tell them, "Hey, from now on, we're only going to Sheets." It's going to put me in an uncomfortable position with those people, right? I mean, that's not a good position to be in. Now, you might say, "Well, that might sound kind of harsh. Sheets every day Sheets is good, but not that good, right?" I get that. The problem is the reason why Sheets is so good is, think about this. I'm at the office here. The Chick-fil-A, I like Chick-fil-A. It's my favorite fast food, is probably 15 or 20 minutes away, right? If I drive there, I'll drive 20 minutes there. I'll wait in line for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then I'll drive back 20 minutes. I don't have time to do it. So I can't pick where I want to go for a break all the time, right? If I have a Sheets next to a McDonald's and someone wants to go over there to grab a cheeseburger, then fine. Sheets has everything. If someone needs cigarettes, they have bathrooms, they have food, right? So that's the reason why it's so important. And honestly, we start shift at 1 o'clock. If anybody's hungry, they can just bring something with them or go before they get to work, right? So now that's fine. If I have a team and I start off that way and I say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going," no one's going to have an issue with that. They might get sick of Sheets, but no one's going to have a real problem with that. Maybe we switch to Ruthers every once in a while, whatever, right? But they're not going to be. But let's say that I do this every day, and now all of a sudden I look like I'm becoming like a dictator. That's where people are going to run into an issue. So it's so important. That's where we see most managers make mistakes. You know, the couple right before we got into this pandemic here, that's where a couple of our teams were going. They were trending in the wrong direction. And it's because A, they weren't following these things. And B, whenever they had to get back to following these things, the team had an adjustment period. Some people couldn't do it. Unless of an emergency, no team member should be picked up within knocking hours. If they do need to be picked up during knocking hours, there needs to be documentation detailing why and for how long they were not working. This is important because, again, just like any other company, just like any other department, we have our breaks, right? And they are pretty set in stone. It doesn't mean that we're not like insane about this. Obviously, we're not going to say, oh no, you're having a problem today. You don't feel very good. We're not going to give you an extra time or whatever. But if we didn't have some sort of balance, some sort of set in stone amount of time that breaks were, then things would just go haywire. So generally, it's the 2 5 minutes and the half hour, because it's a 7-hour shift or whatever. What we do though, the reason why we detail this stuff is because if I got someone that's telling me that every day they need to go number 2, they need to go to the bathroom every single day, right? And I want to say that in recording. That's why I was like having it hung up to it, because I was like, I don't know about how I say this properly, right? What's up, Phil? I'm on a recorded meeting right now. It's going to eat up a lot of time, right? So what's going to happen is I'm going to pick that person up. I'm bringing them every day. That's 45 minutes every single day. That's going to turn into a huge problem, you know? Unless all team members are averaging above department standards, or there is an employee in their initial training window, team managers should be with a veteran canvasser. I know I copied this twice, by the way, too. Don't worry, we're not going to go over it twice. But that's just a standard that we created because people were sort of going rogue and doing what they wanted. They were disappearing on the people that they were working with. And really, it was a way for the managers were giving themselves extra breaks. This was a way to eliminate that. We need to be working just as hard when we're out there as other people are. Hold on one second. All right. This is our last page on this. So the on-the-road training, okay, is the last part of this. So the on-the-road training should last for 3 days. Day 1, 80% trainer, 20% trainee. Day 2, 50-50. Day 3, 30-70. Only approved trainers should train new employees. The reason why we had to put that there was because managers were having random people work with their people. Now you might go, well, that sounds silly. Why would people do that? I don't know. I mean, because again, it's easy for them to take extra breaks at that point. If I say, oh man, I got so many people to work with today, John Smith, can you take over training for this guy? Well, John Smith wants to grow. John Smith is going to say, yeah, sure, no problem, right? But, and they might have a problem with, they're still probably not going to say they do, right? The issue is, A, that person very well could not be getting the proper training. And B, what am I doing all day? I'm cruising from person to person going, oh, okay, let me watch a couple doors. Okay, you seem good. I'm going to go to the next person. It's ineffective. It doesn't work out. There's nothing positive that comes from that, right? And that's the issue with that. But managers were doing it because, again, people want to take liberties with their breaks. That's the way that it works. It's silly. It's not a good thing, but that's the way that people operate. Not everybody. That's the way a lot of people do. So again, you put standards in, I want to call them rules, right? You put standards in place that prevent that kind of thing from happening. It's about keeping people honest. You have to be able to, again, not set rules for people, but set a standard based on knowledge and information you have, things that you know will work. And when those standards are set, most people follow. Most people are okay with these things. They're not, Nazi-esque. They're very clean and clear. They're not insane things. It's not like we're saying people have to, after each door, make a video recording about what happened at the door, something insane and unsustainable. They're all very basic things. For the new Anderson training, trainees will go on the road within the first 2 days of starting for at least an hour with the trainer or the department manager, just to get a feel for the job. The idea is to show them some window problems, knock a couple doors with them, show them how the job works and how the script goes. The trainees will learn the window knowledge first, the script and rebuttal second, and third, the signature service training will be fit into the schedule when we have the modules. After the trainees on the road training is done, day 4, they'll have a training exit interview with the department director to make sure they are comfortable with the info that they have. Going back into the canvassing, this is going to become paramount and very, very important. I've sort of failed on this in a significant way, but this is very, very important because it's a way to keep the trainers honest, but it's also a way to make sure that retention is going up too. I mean, let's say that you had some serious questions about your training then they would be solved in this part. If I don't do that as a director, then I'm not doing the best thing for the people that start working here, right? After 3 days on their own, a new canvasser should have a follow-up ride with. This should last for at least 2 hours. So, let's say, for example, someone starts the first 3 days after they're done the in-office training. The first 3 days are on the road, okay, training. The next couple days, they're on their own. And then after, let's say, 3 days on their own, I should follow up and ride with them to make sure that their script is good, to make sure that they're doing everything right, that they're progressing in the right direction. Okay. All right. So we're about to get onto another section. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. Okay. And then we'll get restarted again. Sound good? All right, Eric, how you doing? Hold up pretty good?
Yep.
All right, I know that it's a lot of stuff, and I know that a lot of stuff pertains to stuff that, you potentially won't use going into sales and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing is getting as much information, especially about the company, about the positions here, and growth is important, and it's up there in Altoona, there's so much opportunity of the fact that it's still a relatively new office, there's still a lot of growth up there. And because we added on that new Terry, I can't speak today. It's a great day to not be able to speak. New territory there too in Williamsport. It really benefits you as well, So,
Yeah.
um,
Now, is that going to be because well, it's kind of equidistant between Mechanicsburg and Altoona. So is that going to be Altoona's territory or
for the most
your
part,
territory or
southern
both?
area there will be the southern area there will be Mechanicsburg. So like south of Williamsport there will be
Like
Mechanicsburg.
Lewisburg and
Yeah,
Mifflinburg
yeah.
and that area?
Large, yeah, exactly. But the large majority of it is Altoona.
Okay.
And technically, it's still
2 hour drive.
yeah, it's far from everybody. Eventually, we will put like a little salad office up there and stuff like that, so that people can have easier access to stuff and whatnot. And but as of right now, because of COVID and whatnot, it was like, all right, let's put a little pause on that. We got to hire people up there and stuff like that first. So we're gonna work on that. I can't wait till Kimiston comes back because that's gonna be a great area for that too. Great area for that.
Yeah.
I mean, between there's not many huge areas up there, but Williamsport itself is great. Lock Haven, and then south of there, Lewisburg and whatnot.
Jersey Shore.
Yeah, yep. Which I find so funny that it's named Jersey Shore and it's in the middle of.
I know. Yeah. I've always wondered that.
Pennsylvania is the silliest place for names of places. There's a town called Upper Black Eddy out in Bucks County, and it's literally named that because of a black hotel owner in the town. It's just very bizarre. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that would be why something was named something, but
Can't
I
forget-
guess he must have been a really influential guy,
Yeah.
So, all right. So, jumping into this, so the 5 Levels of Leadership. I had mentioned that book earlier, but it's such an important book for people going into leadership, and even for sales as well. When you look at that book and the way that it explains the different levels of dealing with people, the importance of that in any of these jobs is paramount. When you look at these levels, okay, so what I want you to start thinking about is I want you to start thinking about people in the company, all right? Whether it's myself, Carson, other people around you, Cindy when she was here, I mean, anybody. And then people in your personal life, whether it's teachers or it's classmates or it's your parents. I want you to think about their level of leadership with you, how they come off to you and what level they exist with you. Now, some of these people obviously aren't going to be able to be level 1 because they're not given the position to be able to have a leadership role. Level 1 is just position. If today I said, hey, Eric is the new manager of this team or whatever, no matter what, people are going to have, they're going to feel like they have to listen to you to an extent, right? They're going to go, okay, well, he's in the role. Someone put him in the role. I guess we'll follow what he says. But it's not the best form of leadership. It's not the form of leadership that you want because it's a very shaky, it's on shaky ground, right? In this form of leadership, if I was offering someone a $20 an hour job and they said, okay, fine, I'll do it, but they were only respecting the manager at a level 1, then the minute that an $18 an hour job comes up, but it's a little bit of a stronger leader, they're going to take that job, or $15, they're willing to take less to follow someone that they feel stronger about, right? So position 1, the feeling of a level 1 feeling of position is not a good thing. It's not where you want to be at. It's where you automatically start off at with people. If someone new starts here, they don't know anything about me. They don't know anything about you. Automatically, it's just level 1. You can't walk up to that person and, say, hey, friend, and, slap them on the back, or they don't know you. They have no idea who you are. They're going to feel no connection with you whatsoever. That could quickly change, but it's all about how you come off and what you do. Level 2 is permission, relationships. People follow you because they want to. And this is from the book, 5 Levels of Leadership. And that just means, people look at you and they go, okay, this guy's a good guy. This guy is someone that I could relate to. This is someone that I could get along with. It's not the strongest form of leadership again. And where you run into problems is if you stay on this form of leadership too long, it's really hard to manage from strength from this position, right? So let's say, for example, people just like me. I'm a level 2 leader with everybody. Well, great, up until I need to let that person go, or up until I need to reprimand that person. They have a hard time taking it seriously because they just fit, you're their buddy, you're their friend. You know, it's stronger than level 1, but it's not as strong as level 3, which is production. Now, by the way, you can be level 3 and level 2 at the same time. It's just that level 3 is gonna supersede level 2. Level 3 is production. People follow you because what you've done for the organization. They can look at it and they can go, okay, wow, $30 million a year department. That's great. I definitely could buy into that. That's awesome. Wow, you have a lot of people that are successful here. That's a great thing. I could definitely get involved with something like that, right? So it's a good position to be at. It's an even position to be at. And most people are going to not surpass level 3. Some people will, most people won't. Level 4 is people development. People can attribute their success directly to the opportunity that you've given them. You've given them an opportunity. I don't mean a job. I mean the means to do that job. You've helped them with the ability to get the job. You've taught them how to fish, you know, and that's why somebody will land on level 4 with you. In this position, a lot of times they're gonna look to you for, by the way, too, the funny thing about this, a lot of people I think they're level 4 leaders. They look at it and they go, well, a lot of people call me, so I'm level 4. A lot of people get in touch, you know, they ask me questions, so I think I'm level 4. A lot of times it's not true. A lot of times, let's say that I get someone that calls me every day, and every day they ask me stupid questions. And I go, well, why is this person asking me these questions every day? Every day they're asking me things. And then I find out that they're calling, you know, let's say they're calling my boss and they're asking them the same question, but my boss is giving them a different answer. No, they're circumventing the person that's above me because they don't want to hear a no, right? In that case, that's what they're doing. It's not that they're asking me for advice. They're trying to get by the rules. It's the opposite. I'm probably only level 1 with them at that point, or maybe level 2. They think that I'm just a good guy. So they can ask me because I'll say yes, right? Or let's say, for example, someone comes to me to talk about their problems all the time. Oh man, this guy was a real douche at this event, man. This guy I was working with, he was a real brat about things, whatever. That doesn't mean that I'm level 3 or level 4 rather. That means I'm probably level 2. They feel like they can bitch to me. You know, they feel like they can complain to me. It doesn't mean that I'm there to solve problems to them, or I'm there to help them develop as a human being. So you got to be very careful about the way that you play things here. I don't want people to feel comfortable calling me about every problem that they have. They shouldn't. If they're not doing their job at an event, they shouldn't be able to call me to complain about not doing their job at an event, right? If they want honest development and they call me, then great, fantastic. Hey, I have this question that's sincere that you can answer for me. Great. But if they want to call me just to tell me how many people are not at the event, then that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in level 4 positioning with them, right? Because they're not looking for a solution at that point. They're looking for an avenue to vent. Level 5 is pinnacle. Level 5 is very difficult to obtain with people. People have to know, they have to know that you represent the right thing. They have to know this person has my best interest in mind. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be right. It doesn't mean they're always going to be helpful. It doesn't mean that their advice is always going to work, but it means that they have my best interest in mind. That person cares about my success. They want me to do better genuinely. It's not about them. It's not about the company to them even. It's about me. They care about me as an individual. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to powder the person's ass all the time. No, quite the opposite. It means that you're probably honest with them when you need to be honest with them, but you're supportive of them when they need support. Okay. So think about the different positions that different people fall in your life in these roles. It's interesting when you think about it. It's extremely important because I think it's just as important as a person that's like when I look at my life and I see these different levels of leadership, I think it's important because it tells me where to go. If I have a problem, if I have a genuine problem, this is going to tell me, okay, I can go to this person about this. If I want to bitch to somebody about something, I'm probably not going to call my level 5 leader, right? If I just want to complain, because my level 5 leader is probably going to tell me, hey, stop complaining. That's not in your best interest, right? Okay. Maybe I should call him because maybe he'll tell me the right thing. You get the point. All right. So meaning is super important when you're going into any of these positions too. Okay. Especially leadership positions, but also sales and other roles too. Having an idea of meaning, what a clear purpose is ultra important. Now, when you're dealing with other people, other employees specifically, it's very, very important to have clear goals and objectives. Clarity of purpose is paramount Consistency of message is paramount. The message has to remain the same. You cannot text people and say, you're doing bad. You're not doing well. You need to do better. This sucks. That sucks. Why do this? Why do that? And expect them to do well. As a matter of fact, because I believe so much in clarity of message, I rarely text message people. I have 2,900 plus unread text messages in my phone right now. 2,900 plus unread text messages. One second. Speaking of that, hold on. All right, I gotta make one phone call real quick. I apologize. Speaking of text message, I all of a sudden a text message about where we're not at. 1 second. Sorry. I bet. I forgot to communicate something very important to one of the other events managers. So sorry about that. It's funny because I said consistency of message. I was about to pick up my phone to say I have like 3,000 unread text messages. Yeah, 3,031 at this point now. Unread text messages. I hate texting. Anytime someone texts me, I call them. Or if it's something that's not important, then I do. If somebody's texting me to say, "Hey, I'm here," then I just never open it. That's the reason why that happens. For a lot of people, for a lot of people, it bothers them to see something like that on their phone. I don't do social media at all. I don't do text messages at all. I'm very old school that stuff because I believe that you cannot convey feeling through text message. So when you're trying to create a message, if I send out a text message in the morning and I say, "Hey guys, let's go get it," that's not being received as anything. It's not. I can't send a text message long enough to make a significant impact on performance for that day. I'm not much of a rah-rah guy anyways. I think that stuff is fantastic. Cheerleaders are important, but I don't think that it's I don't think it helps people get the job done. You're not going to be like in a bad day and look at my text messages and go, "Man, that text message really got me going." No, I think that it's conveying a message is important. I think what helps me in the morning is when clarity of goals happens. When someone's able to point out and say, "Hey, this is your goal today. This is our mission. This is why." Sometimes a reminder of that is good, but again, a reminder over text message, I think, is much less significant than a reminder through a phone call, a reminder in person. So consistency of messaging, clarity of message is very important. Consistency of attitude is paramount because people have to know what to expect from you all of the time. This is the same thing in sales. The customers have to know what to expect. You can't go on a sales call, sell somebody Windows, and the next day when they call, you're like, "What do you want?" Obviously, it's not going to be a good message. The consistency has to be important. Another thing that salespeople struggle with is with the consistency of attitude and message is they sell somebody the Windows. The person feels like they're important to that person. They feel like, wow, this person cares about me. They care about my home. And then they don't want to answer their phone calls for the next, 4 times because they thought, "I already sold it. I don't really care about that person. Doesn't matter to me." And that inconsistency of message, a lot of the complaints we get about false sales reps all revolve around that. Yeah, the guy was great, but then I never heard from him again. He just didn't care about it anymore. When you think about the best sales reps that we have in the company, Shannon Brandt is the best sales rep we have in the company. He's been the best sales rep for years. He's been top sales rep in the country like 3 or 4 years running. He's constantly fantastic, doing like $4 million in sales a year for Windows, every single year. His numbers are insane. And the reason why is because he will contact his customers. Every customer I've ever met, including my friends, anytime I have a friend that needs Windows that I meet, I send him right to him. I only have him go out to my friends. And there's a lot of great sales reps here, but I know that he's going to care. The one time I had a friend, he's a police officer. He asked me about Windows, and I didn't think that he wanted to buy our Windows because they're expensive Windows. And so I was honest with him about cost. He's like, "Yeah, I don't want to spend that much on Windows," but he was about to do his Windows through Pella for like $800 a window. And I was like, "Dude, you don't want to do that. If you're going to do that, at least hear what we have to say. Because if you're going to spend that much on Windows, don't spend that much on a vinyl window." You know what I'm saying? Either get Windows from a contractor for $200 a piece or get our Windows. Doesn't make sense to go somewhere in the middle. So there's not one bit of me that thought this guy was going to buy Windows. Not one bit of me at all. Okay. Cops, when you're starting out as a police officer, you don't make a ton of money. It's a job that you make a lot of money when you grow into it or whatever, but in the beginning you don't. Retirement's great, but at the beginning it's tough, right? You're paying your dues. So I did not think that he was going to get the Windows. Shannon goes out there, he sells him like $28,000 worth of Windows. It's, because and the reason why is because I've never talked to a customer that have not felt cared for. And I hear this guy talk to his customers. He could have a customer that sold 6 months ago that has nothing left to buy. And when they call, he changes his voice, his tone changes. He makes them feel comfortable, right? He does not allow people to see the stress that goes on outside of work for him, ever, ever, ever. The only dude that's ever given a speech accepting an award that's made me cry during his speech. The guy is very, very good at dealing with people. He understands it. Odd dude, walks around with his arms down, walks kind of very like socially, but he treats customers right. Okay. Consistency of energy is important. Same thing. And then consistency of meaning is important too, is paramount too. You have to have that constant meaning. If you don't have the meaning, if you're not going for growth as a leader, then people are not going to try to grow around you neither. At the end of the day, making friends is great at work. It's not important, right? Making friends is great. It's not important. making a growth, showing people growth is what's important. This is guy who works there, who, you know, some people will say, well, I don't like that guy, or I'm not the biggest fan of that guy. Not they don't like him, but they think that he talks to me too much, right? They think that he is asked too many questions, and the irony is he doesn't tell me anything that like they don't tell me. Like he's not the guy who comes to me and tells me, oh, this guy's doing this guy's doing that. There's some people like that. He's not one of them. That's the irony of the whole thing. But because he goes home and hangs out with his wife and stuff like that, and doesn't really get into the BS, the perception is he's a company man, you know. Well, great. That's fantastic. I can show you that attitude is going to get you so much closer to growth than the opposite. Then let's go out and drink and have fun and blah, 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 right? Okay, so now this is going to be something I'm waiting to write down. So we're going to work on success equations right now, right? This is just a funny quote that I saw was, it was like this plus this equals this, right? And I started to think about it. I said, you know what? People look at things as way too complicated, right? If I need to lose weight, I'm going, oh man, how do I start this? And, you know, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to start eating. And the equation's really simple. It doesn't mean that I don't have to put action into it. Action should be probably part of every one of these equations, but it's simple. Activity plus diet equals lose weight, right? I mean, it's very, very simple. It's a simple equation, right? If I'm that big, then maybe it's surgery plus diet plus activity equals weight loss. But for most people, it's just activity plus diet. If I go into my day and I say, well, I'm going to have X amount more activity today than I did yesterday, and I'm going to continue to balance that, even when I'm playing video games. If I put my kid's mat, okay, my kid has like gym mats, and I step up and down on a wall and playing video games, I have more activity than just standing there. Every little thing helps, right? Plus diet, you cut out that one thing from your diet, then that's the worst. Whatever it is that's the worst that you eat, that's the worst on a consistent basis. Cut that one thing out, you're going to lose weight. Will you lose all the weight you need? No, not from just doing that, not from playing video games and stepping on essentially stairs, not from taking the stairs when you could take the elevator, but and not from changing one thing in your diet. If I just skip that ice cream every night, but it's going to help. It's going to start to change that. What I want you to do is I want you to think of what is your success equation? If you had to create a success equation for yourself, what would your success equation be? So a couple that I prepared was preparation plus attitude plus action equals luck. Sorry, my phone keeps falling down here. 1 second. Activity plus diet equals weight loss. Teamwork plus mission plus leadership equals achievement. So write down a couple for yourself. You don't got to share them with me, just a couple for yourself. In your position right now, wanting to grow into sales, what are a couple success equations for you? You know, for example, if I want to go into sales, well, then sales is more of a numbers-based thing, right? So unlike in none of these jobs, you have to be the best to grow, the best at what you do. Right? You don't have to be the best canvasser in order to grow into sales, or events person to grow into sales. You have to be consistent. Consistency is key, right? It helps to have better numbers because sales is a numbers-based job. So it's not like management where I might not think the best person in canvassing, for example, might not be the best manager. They might be very self-centered, which is fine. That's not always a bad thing. It's not a bad kind of self. There's a bad kind of self-centered and there's a good kind of self-centered. They might be the bad kind, but they might be the good kind of self-centered too, right? What is your success equation? So if I want to go into sales, it might be consistency plus leads plus consistency plus sales plus customer service, right? Figuring out these two elements equals sales, right? Something like that. It could be other things too, right? For me, maybe it's I just need more energy. Maybe I feel like everything's right. My numbers are there. Maybe it's more sleep plus more coffee equals more energy, right? It could be anything, but what simple equations will get me there? Okay. So one of the core objectives to leadership and active management, what I mean by active management is I don't mean someone that's pushing numbers all day. I mean someone that's getting out there and actively working with people, is to add value to your team. How do you add value to that team? If I go onto a team, if I travel out to San Francisco right now and I go onto the San Francisco canvassing team, we have jerseys made and everything. I made it sound like it was an actual like football team or something like that. If I go into the San Francisco canvassing team, what value do I immediately add? Well, experience is one. So experience is a value that I could add to that team to make that team more successful. Knowledge is another one, right? They probably don't know as much in this job than me, being that they probably don't have as much experience as I do in this company. My knowledge of Windows is another one. My knowledge of the system is another one. So those things are now added values to this. So when I hire someone, are they going to add or subtract? If I hire someone that's extremely negative, then what are they subtracting from the team? Positivity. They're adding in negativity. It screws the equation up. If I hire someone that doesn't have any experience, but used to install Windows and knows a lot about home improvements, then that's what I'm adding. I'm adding personal experience in product, right? It's not the best quality to add, but it's there. It exists. It makes the team better, assuming that the person has everything else checked off. So when a leader stops feeling valuable, they look towards subjugation and other forms of teamwork torture. What I mean by that is exactly what I talked about earlier. Let's say, for example, I let my team kind of run wild and do whatever they want. I don't have any, again, I don't want to call them rules, but I don't have any standards. I have no standards of what we need to do each day. It's just, hey, go have fun. We'll figure it out as we go. If I let my team do that, okay, it's going to take away value from what I can add to the team. The team's going to make decisions on their own, usually not the best ones. Because again, think about some of the people that we're hiring, a younger crowd, okay, don't fully know what they want to do with their lives yet. So they're more willing to, we'll just call it have fun. They're more willing to put fun above work on most teams, right? Let's say, for example, I have a team full of people. I have different attitudes. If I just let people run wild, then the attitude is probably going to change. People are probably going to fight. I'm probably going to have a lot of people in the vans that want to rip each other's heads off, right? So when I stop feeling valuable to that team, I end up turning to subjugation. You need to do this. You need to do this. Get to it now. You're fired. I'm going to fire you if you don't do this right now. No. You don't. That's wrong, right? Just stupid things like that. Teamwork torture would be me continuously stepping on people's toes, to pausing. We're doing a role play, and I'm like, no, you didn't do that right. Start over again. No, start over again. No, start over again. Right? It's teamwork torture. You don't want to go to work every day. There was a guy named Anthony. I won't say his last name, but he worked for me back in Philadelphia in the King of Prussia office, and he would do this to his team. He had a guy named Sebastian that worked for him. Sebastian did the right thing. Anthony had a very bad cancellation rate. I might tell you this story before. A very bad cancellation rate. Anthony was putting leads into Sebastian's name when he was walking with him. Sebastian came to me after week one. Sebastian, by the way, after week one had 11 demos. He was damn near close to that. The next week, he would have been at 11 demos. The next week, I think he missed one day. He comes to me and he says, hey, is there any way to separate his cancellation rate from mine? I said, no, there's not. I mean, if they're both in your name, there's nothing I can do. He said, okay, well, can you have him stop putting leads in my name? He didn't say it like a dick. He only came to me about it. It's not like he called him out in front of everybody. He did the right thing. So when Anthony, I said, yeah, I said, I respect that a lot. I mean, most people would just want the leads in their name because they think it makes them look better, including myself, by the way, too. I'd probably be the same way. I'm getting free leads. Why not? Right. So when Anthony came in, I said, hey, Anthony, I just want to let you know, and don't get mad at this because it's a good thing to have someone that cares this much in your team. That means a lot. I said, so Anthony, this guy came to me and he said X, Y, and Z. And he said, that ungrateful bastard, he was pissed. He went off for about a half hour about the guy. I said, well, look, if this is the way you're going to take it, just don't say anything at all. Okay. Just don't say anything at all. I mean, if this is, I would not take it this way, Anthony. I think you're being immature, but if this is the way you're going to take it, don't say anything at all. So I leave the room to make copies or something like that. Sebastian comes in and I guess Anthony freaks out on him in front of the whole team. The other manager comes to me and says, hey, man, this dude freaked out on this guy pretty bad. So I pulled them both aside after. I pulled Anthony aside first. I'm like, man, you got to apologize to this kid. That's completely uncalled for and inappropriate. He's ungrateful. Ungrateful. He kept using the word ungrateful. He's ungrateful. I'm not apologizing and this and that. Fine, I'll do it. He didn't want to apologize to him. So he comes in and he apologizes, but it's a BS apology. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're so ungrateful. I figured that you want the leads, this and that. Like, Jesus Christ. So I said, Sebastian, you did the right thing. Don't ever think that you didn't do the right thing. Coming to me about that was very important, and I commend that. That's great, right? So When Sebastian left the room, I said to Anthony, I said, Anthony, that was so immature. I said, everybody knows that your cancellation rate is like 80%, buddy. Everybody can see it. By you lying about it, that doesn't mean that you're gonna have more success or they're gonna respect you more. If I was you, I would go into that van today or tomorrow at this point. I would apologize to Sebastian publicly, and I would say, guys, I have a problem with my cancellation rate. I need your help. Maybe you can help me, and then I can help you with other things. Everybody will respect it. He goes, no, that will make me look weak. I said, no, this makes you look weak. Everybody can see your cancellation rate problem. It's not going to make you weak to admit a problem that everybody knows that you have, you know? So of course he didn't do that. He didn't go into the van and take that advice. Okay. Now I want you to think about that. I want you to think genuinely from a perspective. If you've been in a van before with a manager, what do you think you would feel better about? Would you feel better? Let's say, for example, you were Sebastian. Would you feel better if he just didn't talk to you? Or would you feel better if he came into the van, apologized to you, and owned up to his failures, and then asked for your help, let's say, for example? As a new employee, that make you feel good, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I definitely would do the latter of the two of what you said, owning up to your mistake, apologizing in front of everybody, basically just being the bigger person and being mature about it.
It's the basics of being a decent person, right? I mean, like that's what any person that didn't want somebody to feel terrible would do, right? I mean, like to me, it's not even a question, right? Like I've had situations like that before. I remember one time, guy was in there. It was actually guy Chris that I was talking about earlier. That Chris was always a negative person, and so he spoke up one time in a meeting, and I shut him down hard because I thought he was going to say a certain thing, which wasn't right of me. It wasn't right for me to do that, but I did it, and it was what it was. So then what happened was when he finally said, you know, I agree with you, and he said what he was going to say, and I'm like, oh shit, dude, I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. That was completely wrong. I shouldn't have jumped down your throat like that, you know? But I guess some people, the sad part is Anthony did that guy. He started off as such a good manager. He grew his team so quickly. And then this stuff started happening. He didn't have any standards or objectives. And so over time, the team started he felt like they were taking advantage of him. They were taking advantage of the fact that he had no standards or rules in place that would make the team do better. He had nothing that he did every day to make them better. And he started thinking, I am more important to this team than the people on this team. He started thinking, I can do it without them. I can find canvassers anywhere. It's all about me. That's what he started thinking. And that's what led to his downfall. And the downfall was very, very steep. So my problem, the thing that I did that was not right was I should have taken Sebastian off his team, knowing that I couldn't trust him anymore, or I should have let him go. But if I wanted to give another chance, I should have taken Sebastian off his team. Now, he probably would have freaked out about that, but I should have done the uncomfortable thing and I didn't do that. Sebastian quit like 3 weeks later, you know, and that was my mistake. That was a problem that I created for the department by doing that. And I recognize that now, and I wish that I had changed that because it could have changed the entire face of the department. It could have changed the way things work, but I didn't. And I let Anthony continue on deflating his team and, torturing his team. And what ended up happening was he started losing people pretty rapidly right after that. That was in, let's say, July. By the end of the year, by like November, he had like 4 people. So I sat down with him. I was going to have to let him go. I mean, I was going to have to put him on a performance improvement plan. So I sit down with this guy, right? Now, this guy's numbers had suffered drastically. He went from making, an average of about $110,000 a year to making about, 60 grand or so that year. So I sat down with him and the first thing he says to me is before he interrupts me, before I even start talking, hey, I wanted to talk to you about a raise. That's what he says to me. I'm like, wow. Well, actually, it's funny that you say that because I wanted to talk to you about something else, So it was very uncomfortable. It was not a comfortable thing at all, but it was what it was. So what I did was I sat down with him, I explained this to him. He actually says to me, he goes, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that about him being put on a performance improvement. Can we call somebody else? So, of course, I had talked to my manager about it. We called him and he said, no, that's the way it's going to be for these various reasons. So we put in it. I resolved to a couple things. I said, I will sit down with you twice a week for a couple hours and we will together work on this. I will help you get people in for interviews and so on and so forth, right? So I put all these things in place to try to help him out as best as I could. So I tried. I sat down with him, let's say a month later, it was 4 weeks later, to check in with him. And again, the dude asked me for a raise. He had one less person on his team, and he was doing worse than he was before. So I sat down with him to continue the performance improvement plan. So we sat down, we went through things, whatever. He ended up getting upset again. And then what he did was, instead of doing the right thing and pushing for success, instead of doing the right thing and changing the way that he was working, he started bringing people in rapidly. Every convicted felon in the Philadelphia area, he tried to bring in for interviews. It was insane. It's just like he didn't care anymore. And he wanted to prove a point. I could get people in. I could do it. I could do this. I could do that. It was really, really sick the way that he went about doing it, putting his team in a bad position again. So eventually we let him go. And he actually ended up, let's say, complaining that we wrongfully terminated him, that we didn't give him any notice. We sat down with him for 2 months and dealt with it. But this guy who was great, if you met him, nothing significant changed in his life that would make him like that. The only thing that changed is he got ahead of himself. His head got inflated. And instead of reacting the right way, instead of adding value to his team, he started taking away rapidly value from his team. And he started failing as a manager. So being a coach is a difficult thing, right? So being a coach, if you're a Mike Tomlin or if you're a, James Franklin for Penn State, right? Yeah, not James Franco. James Franco's an actor, right?
Yeah.
Pineapple Express, right?
Yeah.
So if you're James Franklin, okay, the way that you're going to coach is, it has different styles of management, and each person calls for a different style, I would argue. But generally, the way that I'm going to coach, this is going to fit for most opportunities. You can't say you're doing X wrong or Y wrong. You can't say, no, that's not right. Or this is how you do this. There's a way that you have to do it. First, you have to point out the successes that a person has, because what you don't want to happen, and it's not because people can't handle it. Like, I think it's so silly when people say, well, you want to point out the successes because you don't want people to feel bad. Well, if you're managing adults, then largely just because you're not pointing out the successes all the time, they're not going to get upset about it. They're not going to go crazy about it. I think it's important because it's good for people to know what they're doing right. The biggest importance there is I think it's important for people to know not to change the things that they are doing right? Like if I have someone that's doing something really, really well, I don't want them to inadvertently screw it up because I didn't tell them, hey, you're doing that right, okay, in the script or whatever, right? Point out the failures. Point out why the failures exist, though. What's wrong with the failures? You can't just say, you did that wrong. You need to say, you did that wrong, and that's why this happened. When that person said, I'm not interested right now, or I can't afford it right now, when you did the rebuttal, you paused, okay? You don't want to pause because what ended up happening was that customer laid into you because you didn't continue on with your script, right? Something like that. You want to explain the result of it, the negative result of it. Then you want to show the alternative. Now, alternatively, this is what you
You're cutting out, Paul.
I didn't expect to catch you on the daily rate to replace your windows, but before we go any further, all I'd like to do is have somebody come out to take a look at your windows, so on and so forth, right? So I could show them the alternative.
Cut out again.
Hello? Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. What happened?
This happens when only happens at the office because the internet is terrible.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it just kicks me off and then it brings me back on. And I can never tell what people can see and what they can't see and whatnot. So did it just freeze for a minute?
Yeah, it did. And then when it came back, it freeze for a minute. Then you came back, you were doing a rebuttal, and then it froze after that again.
That's so weird. Wow.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to point out was you can show the alternative, right? So when I go through the rebuttal, I'm going to explain the reason why you want to do this instead of this is because this is going to give you this level of success. So I didn't expect to catch you on the day that you're ready to replace your windows, but before we go any further, all I'd like to do is have one of our foremen come out to make sure that we can do what needs to be done here and find out what we got. The reason why you want to do that is because this is going to happen. The customer is going to allow you to continue in your pitch. The customer is not going to feel like they want to interrupt you. They're going to allow you to, you get my point, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to explain the alternative, why it's more successful. And then you want to example the alternative. Now, let me go show you at this door. Just to recap that, I'm pointing out the failure. I'm saying, listen, at the end of your rebuttal, you didn't continue into the script. You just paused. Okay. Now, the negative result, what ends up happening there when you pause like that is the customer's going to take advantage. They're going to jump in and they're going to object to you. They're going to say no. They're going to give you another objection, even if it's not genuine. Okay. Then you're going to, then I'm going to show them the alternative. So I'm going to say, instead of doing that, you can do this. And I'm going to show them how to continue into the script. Now, when you do that, the customer is not going to feel the need to object to you, to cut into what you're saying. And let me go show you that alternative right now, right? So it's important that I don't just say you're doing this wrong. My manager used to do that all the time. He would tell me all the time, be like, no, that's not right. And I just, it got to the point where I didn't believe him. I'm like, yeah, okay, you don't know anything, you know? And we got into a really negative relationship because of that. That's why it's so important. Now, being a coach continued, recognize each person on your team as an individual. So if I can call Carson, like let's say I run into a situation with Carson, I can call Carson and be like, yeah, you're being an idiot, dude. And I fully expect him, like his reaction is not, he understands, like I can say, as long as I tell him what he did wrong, I don't just say, hey, you're an idiot and then hang up the phone, but I can call him and pretty aggressively direct out his problems. There's other people that I can't do that with. There's other people that I have to ask them questions to get to the solution, right? So, well, I'll give you an example. The other day I was terminating something, and the way that I had to do that, it was insane. I mean, I had to point out the problem first. It was a pretty clear thing that the person did wrong, and then I had to explain to the person it's not just this, it's also X, Y, and Z. And then I had to ask them questions like, you know, they would say, yeah, well, I only did that because of this. I only do that, you know, a specific example is the person said, well, I missed the day of work because of this. And I said, okay, but you understand, you know, what would you do if this person worked for you? What would you do if somebody called you and said, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm going to leave the person at the event alone. I know that it's a big setup and that it's going to create a problem for you, but here's not really a valid reason why, right? What would you do in it? So I had to ask questions to get to my ultimate point. So you got to just deal with people individually. Some people you need to speak to directly, or they don't understand what you're saying. Other people you need to really beat around the bush. You don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, encourage earned independence in the workplace, meaning that, you know, when somebody starts, obviously you feel like you have to watch their every move, and you really should. I mean, they just started it. You know, if you're putting your trust into someone that just started, then you kind of have a problem, because again, what trust have you earned with them, and what trust have they earned with you? Not much, right? I mean, the reality is, if you just met me, you probably shouldn't just throw all your trust in me, right? And vice versa. And so, as somebody goes on though and does better and better and shows they can be trusted more, you should give them more and more independence. You know, you don't want to be up their ass essentially for all of time. Don't forget to get difficulties of the position. This is where I see a lot of managers go to the negative. I mean, it's hard when you're a team leader, because when you're a team leader, you're out there all the time. But it's important in sales too. When canvassers go into sales, they always start off like the most motivated in the world. Oh, I'm going to go get my own leads. I'm going to go out there and canvas and get my own customers and all this stuff. They're always so excited. They never follow through. I've never seen one follow through, not one time. And it's so funny because it costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars. The way that the sales structure works now, you get paid more money if you go and get your own customer, right? Because you're creating that lead too. And it's significant. It's a significant amount of money. You could, in theory, make another $100,000 a year if you had, let's say 30% of your leads came from that. So it's a significant amount of money. And they're always like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go right for that. Oh, I know this craft. I'm going to get it done. They immediately stop doing it. That's why I don't talk to a lot of them, by the way, too. That's why because it pisses me off. It's like, you don't remember where you come from, you know? But for me, for example, if you're at an event, I need to understand. Carson and I would focus on this a lot last week when I was up there. I need to understand it's, you know, -10 out. You're going to feel a certain way about that. You could bundle up as much as you want or whatever. You're not going to be like mad. You understand it's not my fault that the weather exists the way it does. But if I don't understand that, if you call me up and you're like, man, it's real cold today, and I'm like, oh, stop bitching. I mean, there's a problem with that. Well, I'm sitting in my warm office. You know, I've always said that. You know, there's a situation that came up like 2 weeks ago or something, and there was an event that we found over towards Williamsport. And someone called me, one of the people I work for called me and said, hey, I'd like us to do this event. And I said, okay, but that event's starting tomorrow. I don't feel comfortable telling people they have to drive 2 hours away tomorrow. Like, I just don't feel comfortable with it. If, let's say you, Eric, had a shift from 9 to 3, I don't feel comfortable telling you, hey, I got another shift for you. It's from, 10 to 7, and I need you to leave your house at 8, and you're not going to get home till 9. I don't feel comfortable doing that, not on short notice like that. I have no problem if there's notice, because that's how the job works, but I'm not going to tell you to do that tomorrow. No. So I said, I don't think it's a good idea. The person said, well, we really need leads over there. I said, I understand that. This is not the way to go about that. It's just the way it is. So what we did was we offered it to people, and people wanted to do it. And that's great. That's fine. But I want people to make that decision themselves. You have to understand the difficulty of the position. I would fully expect somebody, I'd probably quit if that was put on me in that role. Not my role now. The company pays me way too much money to worry about where they're sending me the next day. But when I started out, I would not have liked that very much. And you need to be understanding of that in a management role. You're not better than your team. You're not wiser than your team. There's nothing. I mean, I'm not the best canvasser on this team. I'm definitely not the best. I'm not the best events person. I'm not the 5th best events person on this team. It's just the way it is. I'm not very good at that at all. I can communicate information effectively. I can write a script. I can read the script. I can learn the script. I can use the script. I can communicate the script effectively. I am by far the best person at dealing with people. It's just the way it is. You don't need to be. And I might be wiser in my role because of my experience, but I'm not wiser in my position, given the fact that I have a team of a bunch of good, motivated people. If everybody tells me, for example, that this event needs X or Y, and everybody said that, I should probably listen to the collective, because they probably have more information and better prepared than myself, if they've been trained well enough. And then don't celebrate team successes as your own. And this is something I see people, it kills managers. What they do is and you see this all the time, there's this whole event geared towards this. We go out to, like last year with San Diego, it's the summit for RBA. And it's this big thing, all the managers gather, and they're all talking about how great they are, right? Oh, yeah, we did this year, and oh, we got this award because we did. And I don't hear people talk about their teams very often. It's all about them. They did the best. They did great. Their team is better because of that. And I find it so sickening and disgusting, because the reality is that you could take me away from this team. Would it run as smooth? No, probably not, or else why would I have a job? But I'm telling you, we would not fail. Not right away anyways. That's for sure. In canvassing, what I can tell for guaranteed fact is that the team leader position is probably the most important, because they're the most effective. They're on the road with the canvas every day. My job is, I could take 6 months off and nobody would notice. I mean, I have the least important job in this department. If I was gone tomorrow, people could figure out how to do my job. That's for sure. So the successes of the team, the fact that we can do X, Y, and Z, really comes down to the people that work here. The people that work here with me are what creates that success. And when a manager loses sight of that, it affects them greatly, significantly. Okay, be a decent person. And I want you to think about this for a second. So yourdictionary.com defines being a decent person in this way. The definition of a decent person is someone or something that is, or decent is someone or something that's respectable, modest, proper, fair, and kind. Some other important features to a decent person that I wrote was unselfish, integrity, caring, honest, and understanding. You have to be all of those things to be a decent person, in my opinion. You have to check off, at least to an extent, all those things. What I'd like you to take a second to do is write down, what are the things you think you need to be a good person? If you're defining a good person, what are the things they need? And the reason why being a decent person is so important in a job like this is just because, A, you need to be able to identify talent. You want to be able to identify good people. B, you want people to know that you care about them. It's an important thing in a job like this, because a lot of times, in jobs like this, I mean, think about the people that are around you. A lot of people have problems going on. You need to be there for people. You can't be all about yourself. You cannot be a selfish person. If you're selfish in a job like this, you're going to fail, especially in a job where your pay is dependent on what your team does. And in sales, it's really important too, because you're not making money off of, you're not creating your own leads, right? You have other people going out there creating the leads for you. When you start to feel like you're better than those people go away. We're seeing it right now. Right now, we have less appointments than we did a month ago because it's December, because of COVID, because of various different things. Sales reps are sitting on their ass doing nothing. There's probably going to be call center people and canvassers that make more money than some salespeople this month because of where the leads are at. So when you start thinking, I'm the best, though all those salespeople right now could be making all their normal money if they went out and got their own leads. If they went out and figured it out themselves and fed themselves for the month, they would be fine, but they've decided not to. And that doesn't mean they're not decent people. It just means that you got to recognize, in order to be a decent person, you have to be able to recognize when decent people are around you, when good people are around you, and when they're not, And in leadership, that's paramount. Be a recovering drug addict. Now, this might sound a little bit crazy, okay? But there's 3 major practices that they teach you in addiction recovery. 1 is being authentic. 2 is surrendering outcomes. And 3 is doing uncomfortable work, okay? These 3 things from an addiction, from somebody that's been addicted in the past, that's addicted to things like baseball cards now. These are the 3 things that are most important when it comes to recovery and addiction, okay? You cannot be inauthentic and be successful in a job like this. You have to absolutely have to be authentic. There's no way around it, because of the way that you got to deal with customers, but more so because of the way that you got to deal with employees. You cannot be fake and manage employees the way that the way that you need to in a job like this. People have to know that you are real. They have to know that you're legitimate when you're managing them. 1 second. Or working with them. Same thing in sales. You have to be an authentic person. I tell this story about how when I got into addiction, part of the reason why I got into addiction, no doubt, was because the fact that I felt like I could not be authentic with myself. The reason why my addiction started was in high school. I went to a real bad high school. I started being around some real bad dudes, and the problem with that was for me was that I felt like I needed to adjust to the environment that I was in. So I started listening to different music. I started speaking differently. I started acting different, wearing different clothes. Nothing about me was authentic. I started acting crazy. I wanted to be the craziest person in the crowd. I had 6XL t-shirts on. I listened to all gangster rap music, 100%. Never grew up with that. If you could find my old MySpace, I mean, you might not be able to picture it. I talked differently. I spoke in all like street lingo, all of it. I was so inauthentic. I needed to take drugs to act like I was acting. Like there was no doubt about it. That's what was happening to me. It killed me. I mean, it nearly literally killed me, right? Being that inauthentic, being somebody else nearly literally killed me. And in this job, when I started seeing success was when I could turn on Madonna and recognize that Like a Prayer is one of my favorite songs. And I admit that. And dress how I want to dress and talk how I want to talk. And, I could go on and listen to Blues Traveler real loud in my car. And I didn't care about singing in front of people or dancing in front of people. That's when and I'm a terrible dancer. That's when my job got easier because I was able to be more authentic with people. We just let go of somebody that was one of the most inauthentic people that I've ever met in my life. Not naming names, not up in Altoona, not like that. One of the most inauthentic, and again, I don't say this because I'm vindictive against a person or anything. I say this because every word that came out of the guy's mouth was complete BS. I mean, it was crazy. And you could ask around and whatnot, and I'm sure that you'd find that same information. I'm sure you'd see that from people would tell you the same thing. It's not just me. And this person had to labor so hard to act like a normal human being, to be able to continue those relationships. The amount of work that had to go into keeping up with those lies was awful. I would never wish that on my worst enemy. The way this guy needed decked, it took away from his leadership. He could not be an effective leader because everything was inauthentic. Surrendering outcomes, understanding that you're not always responsible for successes and failures. Some things are going to be left to the wind. That's the way it is. No, you can't control the weather. You can't control things like that. The outcomes, sometimes you have to surrender. Yesterday we had that weather. It was like I called Carson. I'm like, well, look, we're going to try to move forward as normal as possible. He said, what about the weather? I said, well, I mean, we can't control that. So we don't know. I don't want to cancel everything right now, make people lose hours and us lose leads when we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll play it by ear. So in the morning, he tells me, well, the roads are so bad. I said, okay, well, it's 7 o'clock or whatever in the morning. The roads probably won't be bad in a couple hours. Let's set the time for 10 or 11. He says, well, probably 11 works out good. I said, okay, sounds good. Let's just do it for 11 then. Because again, you don't want to lose. You want to understand that you don't have control over every outcome. You have to always think of the best possible one, the best thing, the things that you can control. And if you work on those and stop worrying about things that you can't control, then you're gonna find the best answers. And doing uncomfortable work, this is an uncomfortable job. Going into someone's house for 3 hours and selling windows is not a comfortable job. Hiring people and having to do training with people that don't know you, that are constantly judging what you're doing, is an uncomfortable job. But you have to do the uncomfortable work. Letting people go is extremely uncomfortable, but you have to be able to do it, right? So those things you can learn a lot from. So the next question is, and I have this question for you, how do you talk to yourself? When you think about this a lot, okay, how do you talk to yourself? So there's some people that would, when they're having an unconscious conversation with themselves, they'll start to talk about how it's this person's fault and how they hate this person because of this. And, oh my God, that girl's so pretty. I just hate her so much. I can picture, I see, people doing this sometimes, right? Oh, that Facebook, she put up that Facebook photo. She's such a, you know what? It's not a good practice to always care what other people are thinking, for example. But some people, that's what they have in their head. Other people, oh, I really need to change this about myself. I really need to change that about myself. I really hate this. I really hate that. Other people, you see other people, they, the way that they act. Here's a good example. Let's say, for example, I'm constantly thinking about talking to myself about how much I don't like other employees with the company. Man, this guy, he's going for the same job as me. He's just a prick. I got to tell everybody how much a prick he is. I can't something. I'm taking up too much headspace on other people and other things, right? So how you talk to yourself is important. You don't want to be telling yourself, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm ugly. Again, how you speak to yourself is important, right? Create a reflection place. Pause with intention and create a reflection place. Every once in a while, you just need a break. Take a break. Sit down, take a break. Find a good place that you can focus on yourself. Sometimes that's around people. Sometimes it's not. Right? Some people reflect better when they are around people, no doubt. I don't. I need a quiet place that I can go to. This is kind of a funny story, but I have a chair in my bathroom, okay? My bathroom is not big. I put it in the shower, and then I take it out of the shower. And what I do is every morning, I wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, I sit in the chair with the shower running. I can't hear my kids. I can't hear my wife. I'm just in there alone. I'm just sitting in a chair. I'm smoking a cigarette, drinking coffee, and reading the newspaper or reading to my phone at this point, reading the paper on my phone, looking at what I want to look at, whatever. I'm just sitting there in the bathroom for an hour. Drives my wife crazy. I turn on the shower so I can't hear anybody, and it sounds like I'm taking a shower for 2 hours. But I'm really just sitting there hanging out. It's my reflection spot. In the bathroom, just sitting there in a chair. It's kind of bizarre, but it works. Empty your mind and refill it immediately. You can't. If you empty your mind, then it will fill up with negative energy unless you intentionally refill it with positive stuff. We're breezing through some of this stuff now. How to deal with problems at work. And this goes for sales. This goes for management, wherever your problems exist. So the don'ts. Don't avoid existing issues. If a problem's there, address it. Don't get pissy with people. Don't get pissy with yourself. If a problem is there, address it. Don't be a gossip queen. Obviously, that's a bad thing to be. We see it all the time. Oh, this guy did this. This guy did this. Right? If something comes up, tell your manager about it. Tell someone that could do something about it. And if let's say I do something inappropriate, you call the HR manager. You don't tell everybody else about it. It's funny. I hear people do this all the time. I hear people say, and I'll ask people, I'll say, why did you do that, man? You know that's not a good way to run a team. That's not effective. I just wanted advice. Oh, so you asked the person that's in the same role as you for advice. So you got them involved in your BS and got them into trouble, at least in their mind, into trouble. For what? For what? To just go to the person that's appropriate. It doesn't make sense to spread this stuff around. If I have a problem with Linda, I don't go to Dawn. No. If I have a problem with Linda, I go to Linda. If I have a problem with Linda that Linda can't handle, then I go to Scott. And I don't go to someone that can't handle it. I don't go to Andrew and say, hey, man, I got a big problem with Linda. No. Don't barter with the madness neither. If someone's just insane, they're being crazy again, letting a guy go relatively recently, started throwing people under the bus. No, I'm not doing that. No. We're not doing that. Not here. No. If you had a problem with what these people were doing, you would have told me when they happened. Oh, you want to tell me about how this guy took an extra break now? Okay, I don't care. Tell me about that a week ago and I care. Don't tell me about that right now. I'm not going to listen to someone that's getting let go. Okay, don't barter with the madness. You know, this is not, let's make a deal. It's not a detective show. And if you cop out to this and you tell me what they did, then you don't get fired. It's crazy. It's crazy. Don't get over emotional. Think before you do anything. Don't get over emotional. And don't be afraid to change your position. You very well could be wrong. The other day I sat down with someone, I thought they did something wrong. I accused him and I said, listen, man, you did this. This is a problem. He says, no, I didn't do this. So I swear to you, I didn't do this. It's okay. I started looking at the evidence and said, you know what, maybe you're right. I can't prove that you did anything wrong. I need to change my opinion on that. I apologize. The do's, keep your emotions in check. Think before you speak. Think and decide how to deal with conflict. Take time to prepare. I always take the night. I like dealing with stuff right away. It's very important to me. But if it's a problem that's significant, of course, when I go to record this, I run into every problem with my microphone, the camera, that Zoom. I got people walking in and out of the office, people calling me. I just put my phone down on its face so I couldn't look at it. Listen and ask questions. Whenever you're involved in a conversation that's difficult, listen and ask questions. You got to try to come to some sort of conclusion. Explain the incidental consequences. And this is important when you're with a customer in sales too. If I'm sitting there with a customer and that customer says, yeah, no, I think I'm going to get these $200 windows, vinyl windows. Okay, well, it's going to save you a lot of money, but also this is how it's going to affect your home, right? It's going to affect your home in this way, and this way. God damn, this microphone. Hopefully that doesn't go off again. Okay, so and if I'm sitting with an employee, again, I might say to somebody, well, a good example is what I just said, the gossip queen thing. Let's say, for example, I get into a hard conversation, this person, I'm just going to make up a scenario here. Let's say someone's at an event and they see someone on their phone all day. That's a problem, right? That's an issue. That's something that should be brought to me because it's eating away company money. But let's say you call me and you tell me that, okay? And then the next thing you do is you call 7 other people and tell them all about it and this and that or whatever. It's a shitty thing to do. Number one, you're putting a microscope on yourself. Why should everybody not watch you now? And every time you do something wrong, tell everybody about it, right? It's a bad standard to set. I'd rather people not want to target me because I targeted them, right? Beyond that too, though, it affects other people. Number one, it makes it less effective. It makes it look like you're trying to be vindictive and not trying to solve a problem. When you come to me about it, it's like you're trying to solve a problem. Okay, I think this is an issue. I'm a company person. I want this to be able to be dealt with. Great, fantastic. It makes you look good. The minute you make that next phone call, your attitude changes from I'm trying to solve a problem to I'm trying to create a problem. Then let's say, for example, that person finds out about it before I'm able to speak to that person. Well, now you're creating a problem for that conversation too. There's a lot of incidental consequences that come with these things, right? I write a bad lead. That bad lead's going to go to a sales rep that has a harder time selling that lead or running that lead. You're not going to get paid on it. The sales rep's not going to get paid on it. Nobody's happy in that situation. It doesn't help anybody out. Help the person understand their interest. The reason why this will impact you positively, number one, look back to that situation I just talked about. Well, no, if you're always involving yourself in other people's problems, it's fine to communicate them to me because, again, that's being a company person. But if you're always involving yourself in those kind of problems, then you're going to get a reputation, number one. Number two, no one's going to trust you, including myself. I'll be like the boy who cried wolf. Okay. Number three, you're going to always be under a microscope. Everybody's always going to be looking for what are you doing because they know you're looking at them. It's just a bad thing to set. Focus on change. What can we change in this situation moving forward? Think about the other person's point of views. So if that person tells me, well, I just wanted advice from John Smith. John Smith, I called before you because I wanted advice. Okay, fine. But why did you call Jane, Mary, and, whatever, Frank, right? Or, okay, I could see, I know that's your friend. I could see you looking out. Let's say they only called that one person. I could see you looking for advice from that person. That makes sense. Or let's say, for example, they set up the lead because they thought that it wasn't a one party for this reason or that reason or whatever. person was getting mad at them or something like that. I could see their point of view there. And then look at your options. Termination might be the right thing in certain situations. Other situations, it's not. Maybe it's a written warning. Maybe it's just a spoken warning. Maybe like I got done a conversation the other day that was a tough one, and I realized that there was nothing I could do about it. You know, again, I thought the person might be in the right. I said, you know what? I apologize for having to have this conversation with you. I shouldn't have brought you in here for all this conversation. You know, sometimes that's what it takes. Proactivity will always be important. So you want to get into sales. Okay, great. So let's figure out from today how you can get into sales or to management, right? If someone's interested in management. So you being interested in sales, the first thing that you need to do then to be proactive would be, all right, how can I go out there and get my numbers up, right? Numbers, consistent numbers are important, especially working 2 jobs. How do I figure out working 2 jobs, how to put enough into this to get my numbers up? And it's a delicate balance. It's difficult. Some days you're going to feel like your growth is dependent on things that you can't control. And it's a shitty feeling to have to feel. It's the way this is though. So the idea is not how can I make every day a great day? It's how can I make most days great? And the days that are bad, how can I soften the blow? How can I still do fine? How do I know I'm milking everything I can out of every event I go to? How can I expand what I do? How can I see more success? Right? And it's tougher to do with a limited schedule. That's why you got to figure it out. You got to schedule everything perfectly. And it can be done. It's not a problem. It can definitely be done. And when we get back to canvassing or some semblance of it, it will be much easier to do that. Working full time and knowing your job and knowing how to create that consistency. For someone going into a team leader position, it's how can I become more of a company person? How can I get individual mentorship? Maybe reading books, reading sales books, or reading management books could be important to a situation like this. Being proactive, being self-aware, having an imagination, how you move forward, being conscious of what you're doing, and having independent will. So this one is the one that said the word that I told you before. I have my degree. No one cares what it said. Remember the word I said before? And this is not meant to be a hit piece on college graduates. It's definitely not. A lot of people are in college, and this is meant for, the people that walk around going, well, I have my degree. I have my degree. You know the people. You've seen the people before. You went to college. You've seen the people before. I'm the best because I have my degree, and they got a gender studies degree or whatever, and they're not using it for anything. I have no problem with it. I think it's a great idea to go to college for most people. Most people should go to college. Some people should not, right? Like if I grew up in an impoverished neighborhood and didn't do well in high school, I should probably try to find a trade. I'd probably have more of a chance to be successful in a trade at that point, right? Or a job like this or something like that. If I want to be a doctor, I have to go to school, right? If I don't know what I want to do, school is a great stopgap. It's great to be able to get in this, at least community college, and go for a couple of years to try to figure out what I want to do, right? It's cheap and it gives me experience. But there's certain things that a lot of college students do that make them less effective in the workplace. Namely, they'll come back at the end of this. So the idea is, and this is numbers from a couple of years ago. I don't know what they're up now. I'm assuming that they might be different, but they're probably relative. The average pay for college graduates getting into their career was $41,000 a year. For high school graduates, it was $34,500. A plumber makes between $47,000 and $70,000 per year. Electricians make from $40,000 to $60,000 per year. Sales reps, on average, in the average company, not this company is much higher than this, but in the average company makes $60,000 a year. Sales is the highest paying job on average in the world. I'm not talking about acting. Obviously, acting is probably, well, actually, when you average it out, it's probably not higher paid. It's probably very low paid when you average it out. But sales is the highest paying job. Why? Because you are in control usually of what you do. And this is including retail sales number. So obviously that's going to drive it down a lot. And there's degrees that can help in sales. Sure. In theory, communications degree would probably help in sales. Marketing degree might help in sales. There's things out there. Psychology degree might help in sales. But it's all about how you leverage it. That's the biggest thing. College doesn't make you smart. Taking control of your learning makes you smart. If I go to college, and let's say I go for communications, that communications degree might be able to help me, but not because of a piece of paper that it's written on, because I've taken that learning, that active learning, I've made myself better by learning more, by doing better, right? But the success has come because I've actively learned. It hasn't come simply because I sat in a classroom. It's become because I've done the work in the classroom. Over 60% of college graduates don't even read a book after they get out of school. That's never read a book after they get out of school. That's insane to me. You just invested all this money and time into your future, and then you're just going to let it go by not even updating your knowledge. I mean, it makes people ineffective. Right? If I'm even let's say a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, but I never read law, right? I never continue to study, then I'm not updated on the current things that are going on. It's very bad. It doesn't make any sense, you know? I have a friend that went to college for a long time. He's my last best friend, and I grew up with 4 best friends. 3 of them are dead. One of them got pushed off a roof. 2 of them were shot in the head and killed. One of them is alive still, out of my 4 best friends. And he is not in a good place. He's in a better mental place now than he was, but he went to school and he switched his major twice. Dedicated, great grades, honor roll or whatever the equivalent is, dean's list, this and that, over and over again, in good colleges too, UMass, places like that, good colleges too. But he didn't know what he wanted to do. He eventually got his degree in like social work or something like that. Rough degree to have, to pay that much money, 8 years or 9 years, whatever, of schooling. It's wild. He paid like 300 grand. That job maxes out at like 50 grand a year, you know? And he got out of school and he didn't even want to do it. He was about to get his doctorate or whatever it was, graduate degree, whatever, I don't know how it works, but whatever it was after your master's. And he like quit like 6 months before the end of it because he's just like, I know I don't want to use this now. That's a terrible position to be in. He got so depressed, he was near suicide, you know? He had to go through a lot of things. He's working in a kitchen now, and it's great that he's working his way back up in the workforce because for a long time he wasn't doing anything. And it was because of the amount of depression that landed on him because of this. It's very sad. It's not a good thing. This guy's my best friend. It's awful to see somebody go through something I never had to go through. And I never had to go through that because I found my career 2 years before the average person leaves school. At 20 years old, I found my career. Not even the average person, probably goes longer. 2 years before college people graduate, the minimum, you know, unless they're going for a 2-year degree, 4-year college graduates, I found my career. That's wild. You know, it's really, and not everybody goes the same way, but again, everybody has the ability to do the same thing. I did not rack up $100,000 worth of student debt. The real average of student debt is 30 grand per person, but that's considering scholarships. That's considering community colleges and less expensive colleges. The average person has 30 grand a year in college debt. That's significant. I do not spend countless nights worrying about homework, and I do not respect professors and teachers as leaders because I have control of my own mind. And I did go to the college parties. You know, those highly sought after college parties that people pay sometimes 60 grand a year for, you know? And when I say this about professors, by the way, too, I don't mean every professor, obviously. What I mean is just because somebody teaches at a school doesn't mean that I respect them as a leader or a teacher. I've met some professors that, oh, I'm a business professor and I'm 40 years old. Oh, okay, well, what businesses do you run? Well, none. Well, then what the hell are you doing here? There was one marketing professor I saw. It's a marketing professor, okay? Her job was, she had a job outside of school. She was a tenured teacher. Her job was Beachbody, a multi-level marketing scheme where less than 1% of people make money. That was her big job outside of school. That's insanity. And she was teaching people how to be successful in marketing and business. She was a business teacher. That's crazy. You know, so I can't respect that person. And the indoctrination that some people go through too in school to think that that's the way things work in the real world, it's a problem. But no, I don't have a piece of paper that says XY Community College. I don't have that. Jobs like this, you know, you get into a sales job here, you know, you can make $250,000, $300,000 a year. Relatively easily, you can make $200,000 a year. In my job, you can do more than that even. It's a fight to get up there, but you will make generational income if you do the right thing over and over and over again. You know, enough for you to be able to retire at a young age if you want to, or work part-time or whatever. Enough for you to be able to build that dream company that you always wanted to build. It's just about fighting to get there. It does take a lot of work, but it does not take as much work as sitting in college for 4 years or 5 years. Or God forbid, 8 years. If you can make as much as the best doctors in the world, some of them, and you don't have to sit in college for 10 years, there's a benefit to that. You have a strength for that. And again, not to down people that went to school. That's a great thing. If you use the active learning aspect, it doesn't matter what you went to school for. You go to school for engineering and go into sales. The question is, how do you apply the skills that you learn in college? Well, the discipline to have to go to school to become an engineer is significant. How do you apply that discipline? That's what you get out of that. It's all about what you take from it. You know, a lot of people don't take the right things from it. So we're gonna do one more thing here, and then I'm gonna let Andrew get to his thing. As a matter of fact, Andrew, you there? Okay, so this is up to you. Turn on your microphone for 1 second. So because Eric specifically wants to go into sales, the thing that you're going into is the team leader thing. We could do one of two things. Okay, we could either we could do it now, but I let Eric get off if he wants to, or B, we could record it after if you'd like. It's up to you. Really up to you.
It doesn't matter. Jackson's sleeping, but I don't know how long he's going to be sleeping for. So we can do it after.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And yeah, just because for Eric specifically, it's not that part's not going to pertain to him. So maybe I don't know what time are you able to? What time?
Let me go see what Lindsay's doing if she's off her work thing, and I'll see if maybe she can just take him, and then I can do it.
Because we can also do that in interview format too, which might not be a bad thing. Take your paper, and then I can ask you questions after too.
Okay.
So we'll figure that out. Either way, we'll stop the video after this, and then we can just jump back on, or we can jump on in an hour or two, whatever you want.
Sounds good.
All
Yeah,
right,
whatever
perfect.
works.
All right. All right. So Eric, so the question is, what's your net worth right now? People associate net worth with amount of wealth and income, right? And sure, I mean, in theory, yeah, that's or not even in theory, specifically, that is what net worth is. Not in theory, but in reality. However, net worth, I think it surpassed that, right? So for example, let's say I was a child actor and I made a lot of money as a child actor. Let's say I made not a ton, but I made $4 million as a child actor, right? It's pretty good money, but it's not enough to probably sustain me for the rest of my life, right? I mean, if I have that lifestyle, especially living in Hollywood, so on and so forth, right? My net worth is going to go down as I go, especially if I rely on being a child actor for my income. I'm not gonna be a child forever. I might grow up to be there's a kid that played in The Sixth Sense. You remember that movie, The Sixth Sense?
I've never seen it.
No? Okay, well, the kid's ugly as sin now. I mean, ugly as sin, okay? Can't get an acting role. I think he played a pedophile in one acting role. Something like that, a creeper in some way. Can't get an acting role to save his life. That guy, he ended up going to school and he's got another job now. That's great. But he was a cute kid. He didn't grow up to be a cute person. And that just is what it is. His net worth cannot be associated to what he made during that movie or the movies that he was in right after that, right? I think he's saved pretty good. I think he's in a fine place. His sister grew up a lot better than he did. She's in a lot of movies now. I don't know why I'm telling you this, going over this guy's career or whatever. I don't know. So the questions I have for you, and write this down, is what is your greatest asset? Okay, like you as a person, not like, you know, I got the silver coin here. Like you as an individual, what's your worst liability? What is constantly a hindrance to you? Everybody has something. Okay. What is your best habit? What's your worst habit? So I might say my best habit is, you know, waking up early, going to bed late, being able to do a lot of work in a short period of time, right? My worst habit could be smoking, right? I mean, just to give some examples. What's your top strength and your largest weakness? Like you don't do leg day. I skip leg day too much. So I'm just kidding. But what's your top strength and your largest weakness? Right? And that's going to define your net worth, right? Those things. The idea is this: imagine if we had these things so clear in our head. Imagine if I knew literally what, in this you can. It's just about thinking about it. What my top strength was. Imagine if I could add my greatest asset, my best habit, my top strength. Those three things together, how much of an impact can they have, right? Let's say I had those three things and I put 1 hour a day in to making those three things better. And I put my worst liability, my worst habit, my largest weakness, and I put 1 hour a day total into getting better at those things. The amount of net worth, the amount of my net worth that's increasing, it's insane. I mean, when you think about it, you don't focus on you focus on things in the middle too, but you focus on those most significant things. Your net worth is going to rise significantly. Okay. So this is the end of this portion. Now, typically what we do is we go into a portion where we talk about growing a team as a team leader. I think for right now, that's typically the part Andrew goes into. I think for right now, I don't think it makes sense to dive into that right now. And we don't need to go into that right now. if you decide that that position ends up being more, better for you, then we can definitely dive into something like that after.
Mhm.
Right. But when it comes to sales, the task I give you, the thing I'd say to you is there's a lot of great books out there. There's a lot of great, I don't know how much you like reading, but there's a lot of great information out there. My suggestion is even if it's an audiobook, you're going to a hell of a lot of events right now. There's a lot of time that you spend in the car, right? Just even do that. By the way, your wall behind you is really cool. I like that.
Oh, that. Well, this house, I don't know. This house is about 100 years old. I think it was built in 1920 because
Wow.
Altoona, it's like the old railroad town. And I'd say around then there was like 80 to